Welcome everyone, and do not despair. No, this week's episode is not just myself. The regular episode will start in a minute. I am just making a little announcement here that I'm tagging on to the start of the video. And that is that the full episodes of this podcast, Comics from the Multiverse, are going to be moving over to the dedicated Comics from the Multiverse channel. We've already had the channel for a while now, where the episodes have been split up, and you can sort of find playlists of the various old reviews we've done. One of our patrons, David, is slowly cutting up the old episodes so that there should, in theory, be eventually big playlists of just, say, Batman from 2016 onwards. And you can just see all of our reviews of that one series. But we do want to transition the full episodes over there now as well. So the episodes will go out at the same time, the same gist as per usual. The only difference is where they're going to live. So this is actually going to be the last episode that is on this main Miles Fuzz TV channel. Obviously, if you're into DC stuff, we still do DC TV reviews here and all things that you might be interested in. But it's going over there. You can find a link to the channel if you've not seen it before in the description. I'll put it right at the top of the description so it's easy to get to. You can find a link to it as well on the main channel page. But yeah, the podcast, same as ever. Nothing's changing. It's just moving on YouTube to a different channel. A more dedicated DC Comics channel. There's no extra content being made for the channel that's planned as of yet, but there's a possibility that there could be more stuff over there eventually when ideas strike. But so that's just your public service announcement, is that the full episode, if you watch it on YouTube, will now be on Comics from the Multiverse. So thank you very much. Hope you enjoy this week's episode. Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 256. This is a DC Comics podcast. I am Peter, and I'm joined as always by the surprisingly noisy right now, Matt.
That's because I was moving my microphone a little bit closer so I didn't have to project as much.
I mean, the closer the better. Just moving the microphone tends to be noisy.
Common courtesy tip, mute the mic before you do that.
No, not when Pete's talking, though.
I wouldn't even mind that much if it was like 5 minutes out, but it's literally the opening intro to this. This is someone's first episode, and they're just hearing...
I'm sorry.
Start as you mean to go
episode. On. Go back to do another one.
Yeah, that's
Don't start
fine.
Here.
So, yes, Connor's here too. This is the first time all three of us have been together in about a month.
Yeah, it's been a while.
But a bit of an alternate, which is mainly just because Matt had a weird busy month because he had an anniversary plus another trip.
Mm-hmm.
So it was busy me.
And the weeks that he was free, I was working.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So we are here. We are recording this on Friday, which again is not quite normal. Saturday's the usual day, but just in case any news drops on Friday night that you think it's weird they didn't talk about that, it's because we recorded before it.
And just know that if in about an hour and a half time Pete gets distracted, it's because he's watching Dynamite Live, because it's on tonight.
Oh, no. It doesn't start till 10 p.m. Eastern, Matt. It's not until after we're done.
Oh man. Here's hoping there's no overtime hockey.
Because I was thinking that. I thought, it's shit, I can't watch Dynamite Live this week because we have to record comics. And I realised, no, wait, it's on 2 hours later. I'm done.
Man.
Because Matt needs to be done for his hockey game, I'll be done for Dynamite. So
yeah, look at that.
It works.
It's playoffs. If it wasn't playoffs, it'd be fine. But it's playoffs. And if anybody that follows me on Twitter knows,
you won't shut up about stupid playoff hockey.
That's okay. The only people that usually talk to me about hockey are Connor, my friend Jeremy, listener Nick. And so no, that was true until the Colorado series started. And let me just tell you, Colorado internet fans, not the best. So that's been fun.
It's fun. I saw Matt tweeting about football earlier, and by that I mean soccer.
Yeah.
He's expanding. You gonna watch some of the Euros, Matt?
Oh, probably not. But I just wanted to take a shot, not take a shot, but mess with Rob a little bit.
Yeah.
Get his hopes up just a teensy bit. But
you say this. No, I'm not gonna watch it, but maybe you'll be tempted.
I mean, we're getting close to a World Cup, aren't we?
Next year.
Yeah.
Usually they alternate every 2 years between Euros and World Cup, but because they're still calling this Euro 2020, even though it's
they're doing the same with the Olympics.
Yeah,
the Olympics are still called 2020 this year.
And they still hit a snag because Japan is having a hard time with things. So fun. But yeah, so no, I was only asking because apparently, according to Rob, Costa Rica doesn't fear Mexico. And if you don't know that he's talking about soccer, that's a pretty bold statement to make about geopolitics.
Yeah.
So,
yes,
no.
I'm so glad that you went on this stupid sport tangent before I even listed the books we're reading or talking about today.
Yeah. That's it.
Do you want it now, or do you want it in the middle of one of the timestamp books?
I prefer because the middle of the timestamp books is funnier because David has to edit that out. But it's also
Pete's such management. He thinks it's funny to make people work.
Only if it's not me.
Yeah, God, you would be a front office person.
That's the important part.
Yeah, just real quick. Also, Pete, I'm almost done with Game Changers. You undersold how good the show is.
Oh, it's a fun show.
It's so good.
I saw you tweet about the update on the eggs practice. Yep. That was a nice little
so good.
beat. Yeah. So no, but this is a DC Comics podcast. So if this is your first episode, you're wondering what the hell are they talking about for the first 3 minutes. We are today going to be talking about the following DC Comics from this week: Batman 109, Justice League 62, Green Lantern issue 3. Oh shit, I didn't read Swamp Thing. There was so many books this week.
That's okay. Me and Connor.
Oh my god.
You missed one of the best ones.
That's one of the best books on the list. Oh my god.
You know what? When we're talking about something else, you can give it a quick read. Wait.
Yeah. I'll
read everything else.
Yeah.
That's all right. You know what? I'll let you two handle Justice League. I'm gonna go read Green Lantern or Green Swamp Thing. Were you reading that?
Didn't read Green Lantern either?
No, I did read Green Lantern. I just misspoke. There was too many books this week.
I was wondering why you were pausing so long. I was like, what's wrong here?
I was like, wait a minute. What? Something's not computing here. How did I miss Swamp Thing? There was too many books. All right, so then we had Man Bat issue 5. We got Nick's Batman Second Son issue 3, which is digital chapters 7, 8, 9. And then we have Batman Catwoman issue 5, The Nice House on the Lake issue 1, The Conjuring the Lover issue. I could have dumped that and read fucking Swamp Thing.
This is mainly what I have to say about The Conjuring the Lover. There is a fake ad that is my favorite thing that I am waiting until Sunday to post because I don't want to spoil. I want to give people time.
Yeah.
That was a waste of a book.
Do we need to review this book anymore?
Yeah, I read the goddamn thing, so I'll be talking about it. But
I think you just did. You just told everyone everything.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there.
I said anything about it. Matt said stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, your reaction was quite enough. I think.
You know what? This could have been one of those things. Pete's like,
I didn't dislike it necessarily. I would rather have read Swamp Thing. This is not that hard to follow logic.
Yeah.
I also had a Patriot book, American Vampire 19. But yeah, I'm going off mic at Justice League and I'm reading Swamp Thing. I ain't not talking about Swamp Thing. I'm not having you to spoil Swamp Thing for me. Are you kidding me?
I assume by that you didn't find Justice League particularly compelling this week.
It was a weaker issue. There wasn't much happened.
No, it's Bendis Justice League. What are you gonna say?
Yeah. Me and Mal have fun on that one.
Oh no, that's it.
Matt's coming around to my side.
Actually, that said though, you tend to go long for the length that it is. The Justice League Dark back up. Like you go 10 minutes on that. I can read Swamp Thing in that time.
Yeah. Justice League Dark is the primary.
Fairly dense though, to be fair.
We gotta talk about the living man in the library.
Oh, the spider over there. No.
Yeah. We've got to talk about the librarian.
Yeah. So, all right, let's get to my least favorite thing. Numbers.
Oh yeah, ComiXology top 10. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
I'm trying to download something. So
I forgot the most anticipated book of the week.
I blame Tynion. I was too busy thinking about Nice House on Lakes.
That's true. That was very anticipated as well.
Too busy thinking about that. But yeah, ComiXology top 10. So this is just the top 10 of ComiXology at the time of recording, just to give us something to sort of gauge success and trends and charts each week. What do you think number 1 was, Matt? At the time
Star Wars, War of the Bounty Hunters.
No.
Damn.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and assume Nice House on the Lake.
No.
Man, okay. I'm actually surprised.
Batman.
It's Batman. Batman. Yeah.
No, I get that, but I really thought big hyped up new number 1 might have taken the spot.
Always guess Batman first. If there's a Batman issue, always guess Batman.
Yeah, but also Star Wars. Like
You know what? Nothing pleases me more than the fact that Batman will regularly beat Star, at least in comics. Maybe not in movie numbers and stuff, but...
Connor, have you been spoiled about Where Are the Bounty Hunters? I don't want to spoil you.
Not explicitly, but I saw enough that I'm pretty sure I know who showed up.
Let's just say that I picked up that issue just in case. Speculators might go crazy.
Well, I saw some speculators were then also going crazy over issues of the Han Solo series, which was the adaptation of the movie.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder who could show up in this.
Yeah.
I actually already had it downloaded. I just somehow missed it. Yeah.
You already had War of the Bounty Hunters downloaded?
No, Swamp Thing, you fool.
But yes, this might be my jump back into Star Wars comics, all things considered. It's very much my niche.
Have you not checked out the High Republic stuff?
No, Connor, I don't have time.
I can appreciate that.
I've had a book about coyotes in America, like the animal, not the human smugglers. I've been stuck on page 80 for weeks now. Just because I don't have time to get back to it.
I know that feeling.
Yeah. So
yeah, number 1 was Batman. Number 2 is Marauders, the X-Men book. It's Marvel.
What is this? The 90s? Batman and X-Men, number 1 and 2.
Is it the cover? She looked Emma Frost-esque on the cover, which is why I assumed the X-Men, but I wasn't actually sure.
I don't know if it is Emma Frost because
it might be. It might be Kitty. If she was the first star of that book, and she
was becoming like Emma Frost's protege, right?
Well, that's why I said esque. She's got like a white outfit on. She's got the blonde hair, but if this is what I'm doing to Kitty, I'm glad I'm not reading it. So, X-Force number 20 was number 3 on this list. Hellions,
another X book.
Another X book, number 4. Number 5 is Amazing Spider-Man 67. Number 6 is Batman Catwoman issue 5. So, not a DC book, not a Batman book. That. And then number 7 is Justice League issue 62. And then Mortal Hulk issue 47 comes in at number 8. And then War of the Bounty Hunters, your Star Wars book, finally comes in there at number, what is that? We're on 9? 8? 9. And then number 10 is the digital book, actually. It's Batman Adventures Continues. Oh, no, it's not digital. It's a full price one. But season 2.
Yeah, that was on this week.
Yeah, season 2 of that.
It's got a fun looking cover that I'm looking at right now.
So Marvel, or at least at the time of recording, are definitely dominating this top 10. And looking ahead for the rest of the DC stuff, you got Crime Syndicate and Suicide Squad actually is the next couple up, a few slots down. And then Green Lantern's a little bit further down. And then Swamp Thing comes in the sort of, I think it's number 19 there. So
to be fair, I don't expect something to be a bestseller, even as good as it is. I don't think it ever has been.
You know what I'm enjoying though is that Ram V teased that he's going to be joining the Venom team this fall.
Yeah, they officially announced it. It's him. Yeah, it's not. I want to say it might be Al Ewing.
Yeah, I think so. But he's people seem to be excited about that. So that's the name. So if that's you and you're not reading something, what's wrong with you? And 2, go read something.
Yeah. And just I think the last interesting one here is number 21 is Nice House in the Lake. So that's what that is right now. So
I think that's selling a lot better physically. Most stores seem to have overordered and still are selling a lot of their copies.
Yeah, I talked to my shop owner about that, and he said it was a Tynion book. It was a horror book. He wasn't going to make the mistake he did with Something's Killing the Children, which he underordered. And, has had to reorder and whatnot. So, more than okay.
My store, basically, if you've got Something's Killing the Children, put it on your list automatically. Yeah. They tend to do that with a lot of books anyway. But I think they said they ordered 3 times the amount they normally would for a horror issue 1, and they're still going through them quicker than they expected. That they still had stock today, but some of the variants are already sold out. They're down to the last cover out of the 3 that they had to start with.
All right, well, there you go. That is the ComiXology top 10. We're on a slight time crunch today, so I will not drag this out. We will get into the books. And plus, I like to read Swamp Thing, so the quicker we talk about Batman, the quicker I get.
I appreciate that. There's my iPad. I almost thought I left my iPad downstairs. Nope, it's right here.
Yeah, so Batman issue 109. James Tynion the fourth and Jorge Jiminez on the art. This is, of course, following up this. I'd always thought this sounding down because I think it's a solid enough issue. I do have one kind of pacing complaint, I would say, in the issue, but it's kind of just a solid middle chapter, and that's with all the positives and negatives that come along with that statement, I think. Which is to say that I'm still enjoying the ongoing status quo. I'm enjoying the inclusion of Oracle in the ongoing plot. I like that Batman's going to Simon Saint. I did think that when we cut to Ghostmaker and Harley, I didn't have a problem with their sort of chemistry, but I did feel that scene went on for such a long time and pivoted into a whole other plot when that other character showed up.
It was, but it was also probably the most interesting part of the issue.
For me, being a massive Ivy fan, the fact that Tynion is teasing something huge through Harley and whatnot, I agree with Pete that it is a little weird to throw this in here, but it makes me excited nonetheless.
I think it's really interesting how we're getting what's happening with Ivy teased across like 3 separate books right now.
Yep.
Yeah, I was getting the impression, because the way Ivy's teased in this book, it was sounding more like the cold side of her, the one that's growing under the city, as opposed to the more human side that Catwoman's just been able to sort of rescue.
Right,
definitely.
And then when you throw in stuff that's happening in Swamp Thing, there's so much going on with Ivy on so many different fronts right now that I feel spoiled.
Yeah.
So,
but all of it's very cohesive as well.
I always say that Superman's like a trinity in of himself, right? Because you got Superman, you got Clark Kent, and then you got Kal-El. I feel that about Ivy right now, because you have the green version of her, you have this cold one that's teased here, and then you have the one like Pete said in Catwoman that's the more human Pamela side. So again, not going to be upset with that. I will say that Ghostmaker is a lot more tolerable in something like this with Harley, right? Someone who's more his speed than up against Bruce. I think that contrasts a little bit too much, but someone that's kind of closer to his vibe, I wasn't as annoyed as I am with him. But I think that's kind of the point, right? I think like he's working a young buck stick right now.
It's the bit where he's like out and out, like, no, I'm a psychopath, like clinically diagnosed as a psychopath.
Yeah,
and I thought I'll do something different with it, and it's not ego, because by definition he's a psychopath. He doesn't have an ego in the same way.
Right. Well, it's like I could have been a titan of industry, but I decided to clean up the world instead. And
just because, almost.
Yeah, and again, that's reading Tynion's newsletter. You kind of see where he's at on the political spectrum.
Yeah.
And you kind of see the shots thrown a little bit there. So yeah, you guys don't have to do the same thing all the time. You can be a psychopath and do other things. Not tear apart the world. So you can do some good.
A lot of opportunities for psychopaths in the world. Been untapped. Yeah, so the book starts with Bruce asking Babs to sort of like look for any info on Simon Saint. We find out there's been more Scarecrow stuff. Probably my favorite thing about this issue, it's been kind of one of my favorite things that's ongoing in the main Batman book, is the constant checking in on the mood in the city and how the city feels, and that they're at a tipping point. There's a lot of talk here at the start when she's talking about these 2 extra Scarecrows that have popped up in other public places. You said it yourself, it's basically the effects of a fear toxin without any actual fear toxin. Everyone's just starting to ramp up. And I like that. We're getting this sense that the city's been worked up in air frenzy. I dig that. Why Babs is randomly eating a taco, I don't know. But,
that's not a taco. That's a gyro. That's some shawarma.
Oh, it's a kebab, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it is. You can see the tomato sticking out, a little bit of lettuce. I don't know if I was on the last time we've talked about Jiminez drawing Babs, but it's like, as the kids say, it's a whole mood. Like, where's my Jiminez Babs book? Like,
you just like the shot of her at the top in the chair. Yeah.
I mean, with the
leg over the arm.
The leg over the arm, and just the look on her face.
She looks very judgmental holding her kebab as she's talking to Bruce.
Yeah, yes. just her whole vibe here with Jiminez, and it's just he's one of my favorite Bat artists.
On the subject of Jiminez, there's a detail in the next page that I quite like. Is Batman puts on his kill, and I kind of like where the eyes on his face look. It looks like it's not on right yet. There's a kind of like a separation where it's like, it's not quite into place yet with the eyeshadow or whatever it is it uses.
Well, and much like his headspace, it's off kilter.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I think it was because it's very rare you see the cowl kind of like that, because he's pulling it away, and you see kind of underneath and the stretch of the cowl material itself, and you never see that. It's either on or it's off. There's no in between usually.
Right.
So.
It's not hanging from him.
It's that one episode of Power Rangers where you finally saw them in the suits with the helmets off, because you never saw it, and it was like, whoa! They actually had the actors in suits.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Little peek behind the curtain.
Yeah. So
it sticks out because it's unusual, not because it's good or bad in its own right.
Right.
It's just different.
Well, also I like that we've all seen the image of Christian Bale as Batman with the eye black. It's like the things that you don't see. So I kind of like that this is Jiminez also going like, no, Bruce doesn't actually wear eye black.
Do you know what? Yes, my favorite thing about the trailer for the new movie, which we got like 2 years ago now, is the fact that he still has like the black around his eyes when the cowl's off, because every other movie's just magically had it not be there every time he takes the cowl off. And it's such a simple little thing, but I appreciate them saying, no, he'd have like his eyes, like his makeup would still be on.
Right, he's theatrical. I like that they're leaning into that side of Bruce.
So
But yeah, so with the Ghostmaker and Harley stuff, I just want to mention the dinosaur.
Oh, I laughed at that. I knew you were going to pop at this because this is a Jurassic Park 3 reference. Yeah.
And just the fact that he wanted a dinosaur and he got a Spinosaurus because it's better than T-Rex. I was like, I hate you, Ghostmaker, so much.
Well, no, actually, the word he said was bigger, which I think ties into the ego thing. Well, when it's not an ego, but it kind of is, because he's clearly competing with Batman. So
and I like Harley too. Is like, oh, so all you guys have a place like this now, huh? You got your car, your ghost car, your dinosaur.
He's like, oh, no. Car's a piece of junk. That's been burnt.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't compete with the Batmobile, so it's worthless. It's going to be melted. And you can just sort of see behind Harley's eyes going, I'll take it. You don't need to melt it.
And she says, wait, Batman had a freaking dinosaur in his cave? And then, of course, we get the bat expletives, which I still love. It's such a nice lettering touch.
Yeah.
So good.
They did a bit of fencing, which is kind of foreplay-esque. It might be, it may not be. And then we get this character pop up who was teased a little bit ago, the gardener, who turns out is someone that Ivy knew when she was younger.
Yeah, Pamela. So even before she was Ivy, when she was in school and had dreams of actually saving the world via botany, and then this I guess this gardener was her first girlfriend, back in college, but the gardener also specializes in plant, mammal hybrids. So it looks like she has these hounds made out of plants and stuff. So this is a nice, interesting.
I like them.
It's a very, obviously not everything, but there's a particular type of enemy that pops up once in a while that this is very Resident Evil of. The idea of building like a plant-based entity of some kind.
Yeah. So and I like that because it also plays into kind of the cycle of life and death comic that happened right before Rebirth. That's the type of stuff Ivy was getting involved in, was the plant-human kind of hybrid-y thing.
Yeah, that led to a lot of what that book was.
And so the fact that we have a character here that's playing into that I feel like the gardener is definitely the key to putting that trinity of Ivy together, of plant-human, where we're going to get her. So, but no, this is the type of Batman world building that I love. Because for the longest time with the Snyder Bat book, he was world building, but it wasn't Gotham. It was very much Bruce Wayne, as everything was stemmed from him. Whereas here, this is all very Gotham based.
I think it's different in that his was still Gotham based. It was just a very insular Gotham. Right. I don't think this is Snyder's fault. I think this was more an editorial fault. Well, in that. We make it feel cohesive across the board. Whereas here now, editorial are the ones.
We've said this before. New 52 across the board, everything felt like it wasn't having a supporting cast, and that's just that was just one of the offshoots of that, basically.
I just mean like the way that Snyder thought about Bruce versus the way that Tynion. I feel like Tynion takes from that and he does his version of it, right? Because he was a student of Snyder's. So it's built from there and it's similar, but I feel like Tynion's interested in little details in Gotham, whereas Snyder was kind of like, how does this impact Bruce Wayne's view of Gotham?
I appreciate as well, though, that it works in continuity as character growth for Bruce, rather than just us seeing different writers' takes on it.
Right. So but like I like the idea of this Gardner's been in Gotham, but she's actually good at being whatever she does. So, you know, Batman hasn't had to be on her tail or whatever, you know. So she's just been kind of operating underneath everything. Yeah. So, you know, and I like that Harley clearly knows who she is because of her past. And that page right there that's split, it's at the top. You have Joker on one side in purple and then Ivy on the other side in the blue. I just like that's such a great encapsulation of Harley. And I even think it calls back to the animated show, right? Like, yeah, there's
and just so the coloring on that as well just works really well with the you know, just because the ends of her hair you know, like the blue and the pink, and you know, they're on the opposite sides. It just flows really nicely.
Yeah. So also I like the idea her real name is Bella Garten, which that's such a comic book name. So many.
I mean, Garten's very close to Guard, and then Bella just makes me think of Bella Lugosi, and she's sort of got a almost very suave vampire-esque kind of appearance.
Well, there's that, but Bella also in you know, both Spanish and Italian means beautiful. Garten in German is garden, your meeting place. So her name is actually Beautiful Garden. You know, I just again, comic book names are fun.
I will say I do think this scene. Now, admittedly, because the rest of it is sequential, when we cut to Saint Industries, I'm not sure you could split it up into two chunks, but I did feel like it could have done with, like, maybe like have the new character, have the gardener walk in as a sort of cliffhanger of the end of a scene, and then come back to it after. I think would have been better for me.
That's fair, and it's easy to split the final section. As much as it is played as one section here, you can cut away after they introduce Peacekeeper and do a few pages something else before you come back for the last couple.
Yeah, I felt like it's just been on a long time, and it felt like a really weird pacing thing in the book. But we go to Saint Industries, and this is exciting because we've been building to all this stuff. Like, you know, Batman's finally on the trail of Saint, and he comes in. The guard dude with the fancy biotic arm tries to fight Batman. Of course, it doesn't go well for him because he's Batman.
I love that kick again. Jiminez's art here, it's just a blur, right? Is that Batman absorbs the dude's arm, and then just puts the dude out.
Yeah, this is
just because he knows.
This is basically, you know, when they were doing Enter the Dragon, they had to tell Bruce Lee to slow down his kicks and punches because they weren't getting captured on film.
But it definitely makes Batman feel like a physical threat, because we know what's coming with Peacekeeper 1 because of we saw in Future State, right?
Yeah.
You know, so here this establishes him as this big, you know, Batman's not immortal, right? Look, I mean, look at him holding up Simon Saint on the next page, and you know, he's massive.
I mean, also,
it's just like wearing flip flops.
Yeah, I mean, also that's actually a really nice touch, the flip flops. But we also have better context now for who this Peacekeeper 1 is. Like, you know, we have a bit of a backstory. There's a bit of context for him.
Right.
I think that full page spread where Batman's looking over his shoulder. I think just the symbolism, you know, the idea that something's coming from behind and you're looking over your shoulder, is that something sneaking up on you. And the idea that even though we've been expecting this magistrate because of Future State and because of all these teases and these Simon Saint scenes, this is the first time Batman's hearing of the magistrate. Like,
yeah, and it's the way here that it's drawn that Batman is towering over Saint. Even when he's holding him up, you know, the size difference is so clear. And then this full page where it shows Peacekeeper 1, he looks huge, and Batman is looking up. You can see just from the way his eyes are shaped.
Yeah, and then he gets, as the kids would say, yeeted up into the ceiling, but then there's an explosion outside in the city. This is where it feels like there's a lot of stuff going on. This, like, beyond just the fight that Batman's in, it feels bigger than that, because then there's an explosion across the city, and you know, Simon Saint's dialogue suggesting that it's City Hall, because obviously we won't recognize it from the skyline. It's not that distinct.
But yeah, and it's, you know, it's that Adrian Veidt, everything's going according to plan.
Yeah.
Because he's like, they could even blow up City Hall, and then boom.
It's that, you know, it's that classic, you know, end of Act 2, you have to put the hero at the lowest, in the sense that it's not just that he's getting his ass kicked, it's that while he's down, he's looking across and seeing like his city. You know, Dark Knight Rises, it's the same thing where not only does he get beaten, it gets put in a thing, then he has to watch on the news people in Gotham being hung or hanged and whatever. So,
it's not enough to lose. You have to lose completely.
Yeah.
The belly of the whale.
So he uses some fancy, bat smoke and cuts through a hole in the floor to try and get away from Peacekeeper. And it's at this point where it feels almost like a victim running from a Terminator. Then it does like a superhero versus villain fight. And then there's just the final page of like Batman trying to strike and not looking like it's going so well, and that's our cliffhanger.
Yeah.
So
I do like how all the threads are coming together in the Bat books. Like this is some superior editorial work, right? Because if you're not reading Detective, you just get a little bit of a hint of the stuff that's happening.
There's a great the reference to what we really don't need is that reporter writing a piece about is that was a nice touch.
And how Mr. Worth is we got to keep him placated because he's a powerful man in Gotham still that they don't exactly have on their side, so and then again with all the Ivy stuff with Catwoman, it's just there's a lot of synergy going on here that I enjoy. And then the stuff, this is the one confusing part of here is them in Unsanity, where Babs was basically talking about that the public seems to think that the Unsanity Collective is actually led by Scarecrow.
Yeah, and the indication I got is later on in the issue when Saint's like, let's keep pushing that story. It sounded like it was, if it didn't originate from them as a piece of like sort of fake news essentially, then at least they're willing to keep it going because it works for them and their benefit.
And I understand that, but in this plan, you would think that the group that's causing chaos, but not your chaos, you'd want to get control under, and
that's probably plan A, but plan B is, well, if we can't get control of them, let's just use the narrative to our advantage.
Yeah, make them a scapegoat, make them public enemy number one so that the suspicion is away from them. Yeah.
Right. No, I was just, there's a lot of balls in the air, and I lost it on that one going like, well, wait. That's not at all what we saw with the Insanity Collective last time with Bruce.
Yeah. It just it's not a big deal, but technically we skipped over the very start of the issue, which is just more of the tease of Batman being held captive by Scarecrow.
Yes, more of the horrible text. I hate that every single time I open a book because I forget about it because there's like 2 weeks between issues. And then I open the Batman issue and I go, God damn it, I've got to put up with this for like 2 pages. And it's just it annoys me every single time I open an issue right now.
I know. So it's a good issue. I started off by saying it's maybe one of the weaker ones of the arc, and I would stand by that for a couple of reasons, but it doesn't mean I'm not excited about everything it's doing and all the plot threads. I mean, while I do think it spends one continuous scene too long on the Harley and Ghostmaker stuff, I do like that we can spend half, if not more than half, of a Batman issue not necessarily focusing on Batman himself. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I know some people, Twitter's a place where you maybe get complaints when it's called Batman. It should be at least 70% of it should be Batman. Blah blah blah.
I want to promise you'll never hear me saying that. Ever. Not even if there's a fire.
Oh dear. I will confess though, I didn't bother reading the backup this time.
Okay.
And Batman.
Did you read it, Connor?
I haven't read the last one either.
Yeah.
Just real quick, it's another one of the origin stories of one of the villains that's assembled on Devil's Skull Island. And basically this guy was experimented on. It seems like he's from let's see, I don't want to assume. I don't think they say, I can't look, but basically he has like telekinetic powers and he was experimented on. So he decided to take matters into his own hands to save like other kids that were being experimented on. But that was used by wherever he's from, the government.
New Delhi.
Yeah, okay, so he's from India. From the government basically using Ghostmaker as a lure to trap this guy. So it almost as if he kind of started as an anti-hero but went a little bit too far. And it's kind of to show the spectrum where Ghostmaker is, right? Because he's not exactly a anti-hero that way either, so it's just basically their kind of rivalry in that Ghostmaker's responsible for him being trapped, and not being able to save the people like he wanted to, because Ghostmaker accuses him of just selling out and becoming a mercenary. And then just basically Ghostmaker freed himself with the laser tiger skulls, and it's coming up on the main villain, on Madame Midas. So, I mean, it was okay. It's, it's more Ghostmaker. I'm not a big fan of his. So
yeah, I wasn't planning on not reading it necessarily. I got to the start of it and I was like, I've got like 8 books to read after this one, so I just kind of went nah.
Yeah,
and,
I got you.
Yeah, I get it. I kind of fell off them because they felt a little bit. 1, not big on Ghostmaker. 2, they felt a bit inconsequential. 3, just didn't really love the art. So kind of a combination of things. So just like
it's what the art doesn't mind. This is what I wish Riley Rosmo art was like.
It is like a better Riley Rosmo, but it's still not to my taste.
No, it's very manga influenced, and very frenetic, and it's perfect for Ghostmaker, so it doesn't bother me. I wouldn't like to see this style of art in like Superman. You know what I mean? It needs to like characters that are very frenetic and kind of moving all over the place. I wouldn't mind actually seeing it on Flash because it's not as over the top and cartoony as Rosmo's stuff. But yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it's nothing great.
Sure. All right, let's rate the book then. You can rate the 2 stories separately if you want, Matt, as well.
Okay.
What are you giving it?
So I'm going to give the main Batman story an 8, and I'm going to give the Ghostmaker a 6.5.
Got it?
Yeah, I'm just going to give it a 7. It's good.
I'll split the difference. I'll say 7.5, mainly just for the pacing being a bit wonky. I just kind of felt it. I was like, we were still in this scene. Like, why haven't we cut back to like? Because there's 2 plot threads effectively. So there was a bold choice to like cut to the second one and do all of it, and then finally go back to the other plot thread. That was just a bit weird. But yeah, there you go. That's Batman. So Justice League issue 62, Brian Michael Bendis writing with David Marquez on the art, and obviously the backup as well. I'm going to dip out of this because this is Connor's last issue of this because it's going double shipping, so David's going to make him read something else starting next month.
I did offer to just read issue like 64 and just like I'll skip issue 63 and just I'll jump at 64 and see how it goes. But it's up to him.
He can get a hold of the book though. He can hear about a whole other book that is not on the schedule. Anyway, I'm dipping out. I'm going to read something.
Okay, dip out. So
you two have fun. This was like a 6.5 maybe for me. There you go. I'm good.
Okay, fair enough. I just want to compliment the art. That Marquez is fantastic.
I don't think I've had a bad thing to say about the art on this book at all, aside from my dislike of Shazam looking a bit young. That's it. See, that's still true to this issue. Yeah.
Just the and the art and the I'm gonna call it the world that was, where Naomi's from, right? It is, use the idea that it's so bleak, which goes against what I've seen from Marquez, right? Marquez always draws these nice, beautiful images. Just look at when Hippolyta shows up at the Hall of Justice. That's what I think of when I think of Marquez. So to see this other world that's drab and just like a wasteland,
especially the Aquaman stuff.
Yeah, and how Marquez's art, how he adapted to it. It actually reminded me of Lark's art in Lazarus, which might be the biggest compliment I think I can give on a dystopian.
I'm just looking at it again. I'm like, yeah, okay, I can see what you're talking about there.
Right, like everything was kind of dingy and lived in, but there's a social structure, so not the whole world looks like this, just where the average people are living.
It feels like it's a bit harsher on the inks, and they're not quite as neat because he tends to have very clean inks.
Yes.
If he inks himself, I don't know.
Yeah. Without
checking the credits.
Let's check. I was just there. Into the book. No, just an artist. It's Placentia's on the colors.
So he does ink himself. So
yeah,
it seems like a conscious choice he's made then to kind of separate that stuff. Yeah.
And so for the meat of the issue, which is Hippolyta shows up at the Hall of Justice. Flash is there, and Hippolyta is talking about how this world is so different, and not at all what she was expecting, and that she says it all seems like lunacy to me, and yet I've sworn myself to protect it. So just one of these things where I feel like through that dialogue is just showing how she didn't understand Diana's mission, you know, and now that she said this is why Diana's been, you know, gone for so long and whatnot from her mother's perspective, right? And as they're talking about all of this stuff, she asks about the Justice League, and Flash starts telling everybody, telling her about everybody. He realizes he did the math wrong, which might be the most relatable thing to Barry that I've ever felt, besides being late all the time.
Sure.
Right, just because I hate math. But him basically talking about how he used the multiversal math, and, you know, this is not that. This is a completely different frequency, which I do like that's Bendis filling in where exactly Naomi's from.
It reminds me that I don't think I realized this was an alternate Earth until this issue. I just thought she was from another planet.
No, because you didn't read Naomi.
No, and I don't think this book made that clear at all.
No, it's definitely relying on the fact that you're familiar with Naomi,
which I think is a big problem, because it feels like it feels like this completely alien world for the most part.
Yes.
And then they're like, "This is Ohio." I'm like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah. And hence is my problem. I don't know if Pete's listening. Hence my problem with all the Naomi threads always happening.
Not listening.
Yeah. With all the Naomi threads happening in other books. You know what I mean? Whereas it feels like you have to have been following along the whole time to get the full story. Versus the type of continuity stuff I like we talked about with Batman in the last review, whereas like you don't need to know what's going on in Detective to get that reference. Whereas here, you're a prime example. You didn't realize
I was completely like
from an alternate. We
spent a full issue on this planet last issue, and we obviously teased it at the end of the one before that. And it wasn't until probably halfway through this issue that I was like, "Oh, this is Earth. This is an Earth, not just a planet."
Right.
Because I had no idea, and I think that's a pretty big failing for it to not have got that across. Maybe I'm being stupid. Maybe I am.
No, but I mean, if you don't know because you're not familiar with Naomi, as you wouldn't be because you don't read the other Bendis books. It's not like you're reading Action when she pops up, and you could have been informed in there. But yeah, this is also, I want to give Bendis credit. This is the most that his Flash has sounded like Barry. And I don't know if it's just the multiversal stuff. I just don't know if it's the more sciencey and less wisecracky.
I think it's noticeable that it's only like that when he's on his own, or with Apollo in that case.
Right.
But as soon as he's with the rest of the group, he blends in with everyone else again.
Yeah. So we get over to Aquaman, who we hadn't seen yet in the last issue, but looks like he had crashed with his family, and. You know, the mom wants him out before, you know, because this is some alien dude that just crash landed outside your house, you know. But they're talking about Zumbado, who we were familiar with from the Naomi book, and the whole no zone, and how he doesn't know about it. Which, you know, I did like this scene just because it shows, you know, Aquaman taking charge. You know, like he realizes he's in dire, you know, these people are scared and whatnot, and he's got to do what he has to do to get out of it. But he tries to hear the oceans, and, you know, he can't, and they go, "We're not near the oceans. This is Ohio." So yeah, so there's Connor's first clue that Naomi's from an alternate.
That was literally it. I went, "Oh, this is an," because up to this point, I'm like, okay, sure, there's humans around, but that doesn't really mean anything in these books.
Right.
And, you know, the fact that we've got clear and obvious aliens also on this planet, like Brutus is his name, the villain. Yeah. So
so they're referring to these people as mega powers, or what do they call them?
I think it was mega power that Batman called the last issue.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if these powers have a corrupting influence, because when you get to see Zumbado at the end, he is definitely not human, or as human as we've seen him in Naomi, you know, where he was kind of a dark figure like he was here, but definitely more human.
This is definitely a character that JRJR drew at some point, right?
I don't think so.
That is shocking to me with this design.
Zumbado only showed up in Naomi, and that was
It's Campbell, right?
Yeah, Jamal Campbell.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I'm shocked with this design here. It looks like, oh yeah, that looks like JRJR definitely had a crack at that at some point.
And here's my other criticism here, and this comes to Bendis. As much as I love seeing, Marquez draw double page spreads, I do feel it's a bit of a cheat that we get 1,
5,
2,
6,
3,
6 in a row.
4, 5, 6 on a story that has a backup in it. And it just feels like, I get it. These are big moments, but if everything's a big moment, nothing feels like a big moment, right? Like,
the only thing I really like about those pages is Marquez making the choice to do the circle panels instead of all the squares. That makes them feel a bit distinct.
Yes. Like pieces of the action and whatnot. But yeah, so we get Brutus, beating up Superman and Black Adam, and we find out that because whatever frequency they're on this planet, it's shorting out our powerhouses, but it's charging other people up like Canary. So there's this weird split, and I like that Ollie hits Brutus with arrows, and he pulls it out and goes, "Okay, now I'm annoyed." Like, that's just a fun villain moment, But then Canary blasts him with her scream, and it's basically taking the entire Justice League to take this dude down on his home turf. But that's where we find out that Superman has said that the planet's disrupting there. They need more help. So this is where we get Aquaman, which this is another narrative thread that there was an attack, right? That as he was trying to get out of the building with his family.
Yeah, there was an explosion.
Right. Yet the next time we see him, he's showing up in a tank. Those don't.
No, you're right, because the last thing that you see is like there Zimbardo's here or Brutus, and then the next thing you see is him showing up in a tank.
Right. So it's not as coherent. But he blasts Brutus with this tank that apparently belongs to the family that had helped him. Brutus starts to absorb it, and we still don't know exactly what Brutus's powers are. It's not very clear.
Don't question
it. No, but he grabs Naomi, throws Naomi up to the stratosphere, and then she sees just how bad the world is. Which is, I think this would have been a great time for the double page spread. Right? If we weren't spoiled before, this reveal would have been perfect.
That's the problem. This is 6 of 6.
Yeah,
is this double page spread in a row?
Yeah.
I was kind of checked out by it because it was all just action. I was like, okay, action. I was at a point where I was barely even paying attention to the pages because they were all just, yes, it's a big action moment. And then it's this one, and it had no impact. I was like, yes, it's just another one. I was like, oh wait, no, this one's not action.
Oh. Yeah, no, this had impact for me just with because you turn the page, it goes from action to this desolate, again, I've said it a bunch, wasteland, And Adam goes up to get her. She has the realization this is where she's born. And this was almost like if Superman could have visited Krypton, right? Let's say Krypton didn't blow up and was just a world, a dead world.
Yeah.
Her reaction here, like, this is where I was from. It's a good moment. So again, it feels shitty for me to say, like, I feel like Naomi's being wasted throughout the stuff, but at least we're still getting good character moments for her like this, Like, she has the full realization of what has happened, why exactly her parents sent her away.
It kind of just comes back to I guess this is a Naomi book, really, not a Justice League book.
For now. We'll see. Yeah. And then they come back down, and Hippolyta has showed up, and she's wasted Brutus, looking completely badass with her spear. Does anyone else challenge us? Step forward so I might have your head. Just great Amazonian dialogue here. And then this is where we get Flash, showing up, basically saying that we got to go. And then Zumbado, who decides who comes and goes, which gels with what we had seen in Naomi. He kind of has like portal powers, but he's definitely a lot more monstrous than I remember him being. He was just kind of like a dude in a robe last time I saw him. So whatever has happened. And then Naomi looking scared. But no, I will say that Marquez's art is the highlight. Despite the 6 in a row double pages, they flow well.
Oh yeah, I noticed.
I was just kind of bored of them by the end.
Yeah, I noticed the double pages being very repetitive. I'll say that.
Yeah, So did you feel like the reveal of Naomi's homeworld at the end kind of lost its impact because it was the 6th of the double page spread versus if that was, one of the first ones or maybe the only one, it'd have had more impact?
Kind of. I mean, it's a weird thing because we know it's her homeworld anyway. The point of the moment is more the emotional impact of her realizing this is my homeland, as she's looking down at it. Right. But
I just feel that would have driven home more if that you got to and it was this big double page spread. It was just the desolation, I think, and why,
While it makes sense for Zimbardo to also show up, it kind of is awkward in the sense that, oh, now we have 2 of the big generic dudes that are the villains, relate to this world at the same time.
As well, their dialogue sounds damn near identical. Yeah. When he just goes, "Oh, hey, Naomi."
It's a very similar dialect.
Yeah.
So, Connor, what you rating the main Justice League story? Pete already said it's 6.5. So.
4.5.
Wow. I'm gonna give it the 6.5 too, but that's mostly on Marquez's art.
I'll be honest.
Story's not doing much for me. I do like seeing his Ollie. So
I'll just sum up my main thought on it since I'm dipped back in here at the end. Is I kind of feel like the pacing of this arc and them all coming to this world, I was fine with it at first, but this one made it feel kind of weird in that now more characters have shown up, now another villain's shown up, and it feels like it just keeps piling on things as opposed to actually advancing story necessarily in any way that changes anything.
Yeah, no, I get it. And then that moment with Naomi when she sees her homeworld, I told Connor, it feels like if Superman could have visited Krypton, you're right. Like, it does have an emotional resonance. But for me, it's because I'm familiar with the Naomi story, whereas Connor, not so much.
I will say, I did like the page where Canary cried the bad guy into the sun. Yeah. That was kind of funny.
The double page spreads look great. Don't get me wrong. It's just there's a lot of them, and it just feels almost like a cheat. That's all.
I think it's because they're all basically splashes as well. It's not like the serious layouts. It's splashes with a handful of inserts here or there.
Right.
All right.
But yeah, so Justice League Dark, right? I'll let Connor take the lead on this one real quick, since I did Justice League.
Oh yeah, so Merlin's off doing his thing. We'll kind of get to that at the end because that book ends it with a couple of pages, but he's doing his evil plan basically, or possibly evil plan.
Yeah.
Yes. Evilness yet to be determined.
Yes.
But we pick up where we left off. We're in the library, and they're searching for the book, but they don't really know how to find it because there's every book that could ever have been written or will ever be written is as a copy in this library. And that's essentially their plan at the end is, right, let's write a bunch of books so it's forced to create a copy and the librarian will have to come in and catalog them all because there's so many. And then we can question him.
I love that it's Bobo's cheat that figures it out, right? That we're just going to add a random word on a random page. And it's going to create a whole new copy without actually changing anything.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to change these manuscripts.
How dare you write in a library book?
Yeah. I love the Constantine and Jason Blood interaction. Yep. Just for the fact that, as far as we know, these are completely opposite ends of the spectrum of basically human beings, right? Jason Blood's bound to a demon, but he's this righteous dude. Whereas Constantine is catch and catch can. And we kind of get the vibe here that, Constantine's talking, like
he's becoming a bit of a better person. It's like, hey, I care about these people.
In that there's something about Jason Blood that's off.
He's struck some sort of deal with a heavenly entity to get back here. And it's like, oh, that's a bit shady.
And he says, what's he tell him? That just because it was a heavenly, doesn't mean, in my experience, those above are as awful as those below. So he's like, you just made one bargain for another, but he's got what looks like Zoriel's sword, right? Came from an angel.
Yeah, and we know we're going to be playing with stuff with Zoriel at some point.
Yeah, so he had swapped the deal, and, he's there to help. And then that's where we get the stuff with Bobo and Ragman, whose suit is just absorbing these souls that are fighting them.
But we have a Ragman moment before that, which is possibly the most interesting moment of the book, where it gets super meta. So, as we've established, they're in this library. In this library is every book ever. So they're picking up random things, just trying to kind of get an idea of what the cataloging system's like and trying to find things. And Ragman picks up a book that is Justice League Dark 2021, Author's Notes by Ram V, and opens it up. And it's, at some point, one of our characters will learn Zatanna's secret, that the Upside Down Man's power and influence lingers within her, growing each time she uses her powers and pushes herself beyond her limits. It's like, so that's what's going on with her. But then just the way of like handling what is fundamentally quite awkward exposition, but putting it in this really meta context.
Yeah, it's very Morrison. It's from when Pete's been talking about Animal Man for the Patreon stuff. This whole entire thing sounded like stuff from Doom Patrol that I watched, right? Up through the half of the first season, and the Animal Man stuff from Morrison. That's super
especially
meta.
The kind of back third of the Animal Man stuff.
Yeah. So, and then here we get that with Zatanna basically pushing her powers to copy all of the books, through her backwards magic, and they start getting rained upon by them all, where the librarian comes out, and he is everything you would expect a character knows the librarian to be.
Yes. As I say, he's very much in the vein of kind of a younger Lucian from Sandman. It's kind of what I said last time. Even design-wise, he's very similar. It's got a lot of similar attitudes. I wouldn't be surprised to learn that this is like an alternate version of him at some point. But they never give him a name here, just the librarian. Right. So I thought that was enough that they could...
And I do like that he looks like he's two-dimensional made of book pages.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
That's a cool, where his motion is leaving like pages behind, so you can see as he was, flailing his hands about.
It's like when he turns his head and there's like the pages fluttering behind the head.
Yeah, you can hear it. The art is that good. Zermanico is so good. But so they end up, talking to hey, if you tell us the book that Merlin, we'll stop doing this, which is the ultimate Constantine. Just give me what I want and I'll stop doing what I'm doing.
Pretty much. Tends to work for him as well, let's be honest.
Yeah, right. And, he says that, he sure is a library and he borrowed it, but we all know Merlin's not bringing it back. So he took something called the Eternity Book and looked up with great interest from the works of cartographer Anaximander, which basically gives them a map to old Atlantis. Like, we're talking ancient Atlantis, not Arthur's Atlantis, but the Atlantis that was
like Atlantis to Arthur in the same way that Camelot is to England. Like it's like this mythical kind of.
It's Plato's Atlantis.
Like Starbucks to America, yeah.
No, because Starbucks are very much real. This is a.
It was a silly joke. It was a silly joke, Matt. Just roll.
Yeah, but I want the logic there, Pete. He
wasn't why you chose Starbucks.
Yeah.
Because it's the most common branded thing at every corner.
But yeah, but the fact here that this came from the library and that Plato's Atlantis was meant to be a warning to society of don't get too big. Nature is still out there. And this is what does they call it? Atlantis, the first bastion for magic on Earth.
Yeah, and that's why Merlin has gone there. And again, he looks evil looking up at the end with the red eyes, but I do wonder if maybe he's not. I do wonder what the plan is.
If future state can be believed, he creates a magical, I'll say fascist state, from based off of that. So, but who knows? But yeah, at the beginning, I just love the beginning that he pays a guy to take him out to the middle of the ocean, and then pays him in gold doubloons, basically, and then jumps off into the ocean and walks away. It's such a great image.
Speaking of the future state issues,
yes,
was it Etrigan or Jason Blood that made the deal that would like remember to go back into like when they created the alternate timeline?
It had to have been Etrigan, because Jason Blood was serving Merlin by himself.
That's a good point, because I'm wondering if that would maybe sort of explain Jason's deal, whatever that may be, but
yeah,
it might still be something to do with that.
Well, so I'm looking back, and we'll talk about when we get to the Swamp Thing, that I'm seeing a thread. You know how Tynion has had a thread through his work at DC? I'm seeing the same kind of thread through Ram V's work. And then if you track it through his Justice League Dark with Swamp Thing, there's a lot of stuff that you can tell that he was interested in and that he's getting to work out through there.
It's really interesting how the first Ram V issue for Justice League Dark was the annual with Swamp Thing, which, correct if I'm wrong, very heavily featured Floronic Man.
Yeah.
And now obviously we're dealing with Woodrue pretty heavily in Swamp Thing.
Right. And so now here I'm feeling the same with his story on that he came into on Justice League Dark when he took over from Tynion, and where we got the the elemental story elements, right? That they tracked down in the caves in Africa.
Yeah, that the thesis of storytelling itself.
Right. And here it seems like he's doing that with magic. And like if this is what we're getting with Merlin, and the whole Lords of Order stuff that Tynion had done, that just because they're Lords of Order doesn't necessarily mean they have good intentions. It's almost the same with Merlin. Just because he's light magic, he's up to something.
Yeah.
That I just feel there's threads from not even his Justice League Dark, but just like the whole the magic and all this other stuff.
Really appreciate how much he's carrying through this Upside Down Man potential going forward with Zatanna, because he did such a neat job of wrapping that up, and it's like it felt like, okay, Tynion's era has now ended, even though Rambi was right in the back, like third of that. It felt like, okay, now is a fresh start for Rambi to kind of tell his story going forward. So I appreciate the fact that while he's obviously taking that opportunity and is doing a lot of new stuff, it's not like ignoring that stuff either.
No, and to me that's what comics like this should be. Like, I feel like we really got used to Johns coming in and cleaning the slate, and then just telling new stuff while playing with continuity.
We got a lot of writers that did that, didn't they? Where they'll like they want to come in, play with the toys, and then just leave it. And the next writer wants to play with the toys how they imagine them to be, not how they were actually left.
They create their own sandbox instead of playing in the DC sandbox. And so now I feel Philip Kennedy Johnson's doing this over in Superman. Ram V's doing this currently on his books. And I feel, to me, it creates a better sense of the DC universe. And that's why, we talked about New 52 and how everything felt compartmentalized. And even through Rebirth, things are kind of compartmentalized. Now it's feeling like it's this interconnected world again. And it is the DC Comics universe. So, and I'll never not love that. That's why I read comics.
Yeah.
So, but so for Justice League Dark, I thoroughly enjoyed this. Even I wish we could alternate them, and that like Justice League Dark gets a big page count, and then we can have Bendis.
I mean, it'll tell exactly the same amount of story in Bendis is 10 pages anyway, so I might as well.
True. But I want more. But so I'm gonna give Justice League Dark an 8.5.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the 8.5 as well.
There you go.
That was a nice one to go out on, Connor, before you can't read this anymore.
Yeah. It's not that he can't; it's that he won't.
Yeah, I'm about paying for an issue of Justice League for 10 pages.
Is it the principle of 10 pages, or is it more the principle that it's effectively contributing to the idea that Bendis on a big book is a success, so you're then contributing to more Bendis books?
It's the fact that it's 10 pages. If this was not Bendis, but also just something I didn't want to read, but not something I really have a strong feeling like. A book I'm not enjoying, but there's 10 pages at the end that I really like.
So what if they split it evenly? Would you pay the 5? Well, it's 5 for us. Would you pay the however amount for the half of Justice League Dark? Because I would. But I'm already buying this, so.
I would say probably not. I'd say
that's an interesting question.
Even for 20 pages is a lot.
That's an interesting question though, because I don't think you would question it the other way around. You'd pay $5 for a book where you like the main story and don't care about the backup, because we all do it.
Yeah,
we do it. Yeah.
So it's funny to say that just shifting it 5 pages. There's a slider in the middle.
There's a chance. With some of those ones with the backups, there's always a chance that maybe I'll like the backup when it rotates round.
Yeah, next time.
Whereas if it was like this in this scenario where it's Bendis Justice League and it's going to be Bendis Justice League for the foreseeable future, I'm always going to hate that. That feels like I'm actively throwing away money there, whereas it's less of a gamble like it is with some of the other ones.
I don't think it'll be the stupidest thing you've thrown away money on if you do.
It definitely wouldn't be. I've thrown away money on far stupider.
A proud owner of the Fast and the Furious movie box set.
So that was given to me. I did not buy it. Thank you.
Well, it's not like I have 3 pairs of wireless earphones that are pretty solid, and I'm definitely not looking at another pair that are like 150 quid to buy next week. Shut up.
I bought an Apple TV this past week.
Yeah, you can't talk.
And it's been a solid upgrade because the 4K streaming on that thing is much, much better than everything else. So, I regret nothing. But anyway, yes. Green Lantern issue 3, Geoffrey Thorne writing with Tom Raney and Marco Santucci on the art. And what's interesting about this issue is that the first 2 issues were no backups, it was just longer page count with the story. But because there's been a natural split in the character groupings at the end of issue 2, this one actually took the format of having a main story and a backup. But both are continuing threads from the previous 2 issues. It's just, there's a neat split now for the artist, effectively.
And one I enjoyed thoroughly, and one not so much.
I think it's fair to say that I assume you mean the back half is the better the 2.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Out of interest, when you say back half, is it actually an even page count? Or
it's not even, no. It's more weighted towards the first one.
It's the thing that I was way more invested in at the end of issue 2.
For sure, yeah.
So when we didn't get to that, we opened on some weird, disorienting scene with John. I was like, okay, wait, what happened with the power battery? It blew up.
I didn't read this because I was saying to Matt, like, I do plan, but I've been working such long hours and I've been behind. I haven't had a chance to read issue 2 yet. And then Matt was like, "Yeah, the first bit of this book is not good." I was like, "Well, that's moving it lower on the priority list."
I mean, I don't know if I'd go as far as say not good. I would just say it's
fine.
It's fine, yeah. The back chunk of it though, where it comes back to Oa and it's Joe and it's Kelly. And Baz with his bionic arm.
Yeah.
How long's he had a bionic arm?
Well, no, because he got heavily, because he looked dead at the end of last issue. So we see him in this issue. He's got a big bionic arm, and it looks like he's got the thing where like a gun comes out of, like RoboCop does with his leg, because he kind of just, I don't know, you don't see the transition,
like more like the gun pops out the side and not like Cyborg where like the end.
No, No.
Okay. Although it does say that it's healing his arm though, so I suspect that eventually we'll get rid of it. But at least for now, he's got this cool bionic arm.
What if he doesn't want to? What if he's like, I like having this? You know. Well,
obviously the parts in the first half that I liked. Obviously we're setting up the idea that John ends up stranded on this planet with these aliens. He's in the dark sector, right? Because the ship that we're on crossed through before the power battery seemingly blew up. Because John's in space. We see this early on because basically it's a little bit disorienting at first because whoever this character is on this planet, who we find out later is not telepathic but can connect like her she's got like a connection, like biological connection thing.
Avatar.
It's kind of Avatar-esque, where she basically links into the back of his head like she's hooking him into the Matrix, and she can sort of look at his memories. And he's reliving some of these things. At first, it's like a weird, like made up thing where he's in high school with the other Green Lanterns, and that was vaguely amusing.
I didn't find it amusing.
I thought it was vaguely amusing.
It did not fit the tone from the book that we have been reading.
Kilowog, like calling the other students posers whilst wearing a Letterman jacket, I thought was kind of funny. But he wakes up. We get to see some of the context where he was literally flying in space when his ring explodes, presumably at the same time as the power battery.
Yeah. So they had a ship made out of Green Lantern energy.
Yes.
Right? Power battery blows up. Ship. No longer a ship.
That's one of my things, because obviously that teases it in that first story. When you get to the backup, and like Joe puts up this like call to any Green Lanterns that might be able to hear it, is like, yeah, every Green Lantern across the universe has just become stranded without their power.
Mm-hmm.
And
this the future state stuff, right? That we saw with Guy, and we were wondering, how did Guy get stranded? This answers that.
Oh sure, yeah. But the big thing though is that there's a relief effort where the United Planets are sending out rescue squads and rescue ships to try and find Green Lanterns based on their last known locations, because they are going to be vulnerable. And I thought this was really interesting. Like, yeah, this would be cataclysmic. Like, all these thousands of Green Lanterns would just be stranded, potentially in dangerous hostile space, if they're even on an atmosphere where they can breathe. Which is also, a chance they're not.
Yeah.
So I thought all that was super interesting stuff. And much like I was saying with issue 2, I mean, you weren't here, Matt, but I assume you had the same thought, was that both Joe and Kelly potentially both have still working power, because Joe's ring was very separate and was charged up by like the sun or whatever it was at the time, and Kelly's is a weird own thing with a gauntlet, and again, very different. So it's sort of like, and even in this backup, you get this sense that obviously Joe looks at this Kelly's a kid, I can't really have her be on my team, but she's also the only person with a working power ring of some kind other than me. She's kind of like extremely valuable right now. And Baz obviously joins up. He offers to help. He's got his cool bionic arm. He's got Super Mario-esque jet boots from the movie that he's using to like sort of get around. Wait, so that's John that's got that. John's got that in the planet. Because John Stewart makes himself a fancy new Green Lantern jacket that he wears. So he's
that's right.
Because he's still sort of like acting as if he's the authority, because he's there for a long time. So there's a time transition. Where...
she also tells him that time doesn't move in the dark sector like it does for you normally.
Yeah. But for him, it's a long time. I mean, it may not be a long time to everyone else.
It's 145 days that he's been with them from the time that they meet. And yeah, he makes a very
I'm sure it's not the exact same thing, but this feels like a perfect opportunity for your Interstellar joke, Matt.
That's right, because time is different because of gravity, as the movie Interstellar taught us. Man, I haven't made that joke in a while. I haven't had an opportunity. Good call, though, Pete.
Sure.
But yeah, no, just the page where it jumps to Oa and Joe's there, and it cuts to all the lanterns that are marooned.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like Isomots out in space. Oh man, it's rough. And then it looks like Princess Eland's in some weird forest fighting what look like P. What are they right after the chest burster? What form of alien is that?
I mean the little critter that's like darting around. I don't know if it's
that the chest burster?
That's a chest burster. That's a chest burster. Yeah,
that's the one. What's the facehugger?
Yeah,
that's what I was confusing. Yeah, they look like chest bursters that she's fighting, and it looks like Kyle's all laid up too somewhere.
Yeah.
But it's just, it feels, you get the vibe that it's very dire, and that's before we get back to Oa.
I think the Jon Stewart stuff, it's got this interesting challenge of building up a new cast of supporting characters, of just building its own. And I do like it in principle that, okay, we're going to like take Jon Stewart as the example of what one Lantern's going through who's been stranded, and then we're going to do the sort of the wider, we're trying to fix the core and get everyone to safety and figure out what happened, because Joe does not believe it was a coincidence that right after they join the United Planets that the power battery blows up. There's something afoot. So yeah, I'm digging what it's doing in that sense, and I would say I like the art. The Santucci art in the backup is better than the main art. I didn't hate the main art, but it's definitely got some bulky 90s-esque qualities to it.
It does, and the way that it's colored too feels like that. It feels like Age of Apocalypse to me.
Yeah, so that era, yeah. Jon Stewart's head is often looking a bit bulky and big for his body, but it's not completely unappealing though. Like it's not like off-putting. I do like his fancy new jacket. I like his. I would describe it as a fairly Star Trek Next Generation Green Lantern style like outfit.
Is it on par with Picard's jacket?
I mean, not very much is on Picard, on level with Picard's jacket, let's be honest.
No, it reminds me of the folded, like, who wears one like this?
Oh, you make so
in comics.
Connor, do you know the more kind of formal attire they wear when they've got a special visitor?
The like, kind of like the Mass Effect.
Yeah, like that. Yeah. It's got that kind of like sort of seaman layout.
Yeah. Those are nice designs.
Yeah. So, but yeah, definitely I was a bigger fan of the back half, and just seeing what they're going through, you know. Yeah,
because basically
Joe's forced into leadership, basically.
Yeah, just to sum up the end of the first chunk, because I don't feel like we'll go back to it too much. Is some aliens show up, who are going to basically take and enslave. Because they're in the dark sector, there's various warring like alien races. This little planet that John's on likes to just try and stay off the radar so no one comes and bothers them. But clearly these aliens find them, and John tries to be all space cop on them, but they zap him, and so he's in a bit of predicament here at the end.
Like it's nothing.
Yeah. He forgot that he didn't have a superpower anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Bless him. He's trying to do the right thing though.
Yep.
Yeah. I do love that one of the United Planets representatives is a Dominator, though. I love a Dominator showing up with a clipboard and being like, okay, we're helping you, Lantern Joe, as best we can.
Like a blue Dominator, too, who I've never seen before.
Yeah, we got two of the regular kind and a blue one, yeah.
Yeah, so that's interesting.
Yeah, Joe's speech as well, as she puts out, is quite interesting, because she's like, yeah, none of you really know who I am. In fact, exactly none of you know who I am, because I was given a separate mission at the edge of the universe, and so I'm completely different. But do you know what this reminds me of? And a lot of it is, I think I already made a Power Rangers reference earlier, but I'm going to make a proper one now. Is that this reminds me of when all the Power Rangers lost their coins, but Tommy's like knockoff green coin was the one that still worked. So he kind of had to single-handedly like rescue the rest of their powers. And this Joe and Kelly stuff feels like this is their time for that. This is the time for them to shine as the new Lanterns who have a different kind of Green Lantern power who are going to save everyone else.
They're not on the morphin grid.
No.
Exactly, yes. They're not on the morphin grid.
Oh, man.
So, this is what's making me think. I'm getting Go Green Ranger Go in my head.
While we're talking about Power Rangers, very briefly, Humble Bundle have an offer on right now for basically all of the Power Ranger stuff from Boom. Just, should people be interested?
Yeah, it's like $40 for the biggest package, where it has like everything up until fairly recent stuff.
I think it's less than that. It's only like £17, so I think it's probably only like $30 at most.
Oh, was it 30? Okay. Because the smallest one's only a few single issues, and that's like $1. But if you go, there's like 4 tiers.
Yeah, the top one, it has like 14 volumes of Mighty Morphin. It's got like some of the classic stuff. It's got crossover with Turtles. It's got some OGNs. Yeah, it's got quite a lot in it.
Yeah, I mean, if you just want to dabble, the second tier, which is like $5 or whatever, that one has the first couple of trades, so you actually get enough to read to really get a sense of it. Beyond just a couple of single issues. So
yeah,
but yeah, it's neat. As long as you don't mind having random like sort of PDF style files as your comics, which always strikes me. Every time there's like a thing like this on Humble Bundle with comics, I always feel a little bit weird just buying like a folder of PDFs. It's weird.
Think the weird thing in this one is most of them are EPUBs, not PDFs, which is even weird because PDF is at least formatted for images, right?
Mm-hmm.
EPUBs are typically used for ebooks like Kindle books and stuff like that.
Oh, that's what EPUB means.
Kindle, yeah.
Huh.
It's a weird choice.
Yeah, it's just a bit weird. But I mean, it's good value though. I mean, if you want to try Power Rangers comics, this is obviously a cheap way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Especially since Boom tend to gouge a little bit by only putting 4 issues per trade, like consistently.
And they're not cheap trades.
No, so they do not care about.
Marvel do that a lot as well. They'll do like 4-issue trades, but they will price them accordingly. They'll be significantly cheaper than their other trades.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel as bad.
Yeah, Boom and IDW. I mean, maybe it's just because they're small imprints, so they have to charge a bit more, and it's just the price of doing business.
It feels bad, doesn't it?
It does feel bad. It does feel bad. It feels like there's less reason to wait for the trade. You might as well just buy the single issues because you're not saving that much.
I think it's usually cheaper to buy the single issues.
When they're on sale, it is for sure. Usually when they're both on sale at the same time, it's usually cheaper to get the single issues over the trades.
Yeah.
Anyway,
all right.
So, I love that conversation, I can tell.
Yeah, sure.
So, Yeah, I mean that's basically it. She gets to know Baz a little bit. He offers his help with his fancy new space gun, and then she goes to talk to Kelly. And she's excited that Simon's not dead, which is good. And the cliffhanger at the end of this issue is that, you know, like we hear the rest of the message, and we see one person possibly hear it. And I think this is something that you guys theorized, is that Hal's ring, because of how he rebuilt it, is maybe separate from everyone else's. Because that seems to be Hal at the end here who's listening to this.
Yeah. Wherever he's at, it's super dodgy because he's hiding in the shadows.
Yes.
Hal, somewhere dodgy.
Yeah, right? Now, who would have guessed?
So, it's a neat cliffhanger. I mean, I don't necessarily mind the idea of not getting to him for a few issues, though, just so that we give Kelly and Joe a chance to really shine on their own before we do that. But
it shifted gears really quick with the with John and just the way that they throw us in. It threw me for a loop.
I definitely felt even better though once we did cut to the others, and I realized, we're going to consistently have this as going as well. I think I felt much better about what that first half was.
That's what saved me. Was when we got to Joe and we saw Simon. He's got a new bionic arm, and Kelly runs over there and gives him a big old hug. Like that's the wholesome Green Lantern content I want to see.
Part of me does wonder though. Like I appreciate the separate into the two stories, if nothing else, just to make the artist break feel a lot neater. Yeah. But part of me wonders, like, could you just like split these up and just have them cut in between the two plot threads, like a regular, like, you know, 2-thread comic book, and it would work well enough, I think.
Yeah, it would. And I think it would have given us a little bit more respite, because it would have you know, the John mystery at the beginning, you know, where we're going through his memories, it would have definitely added more, a little bit disorientation, but it would have felt nice because now we're jumping to Joe.
Because you could have the transition, like when the ring explodes in that one sort of flashback part of that weird start of the book, you could use that as a transition to the Joe stuff where she's talking about what's happening, and then cut back to the. You could do that way. I get why they didn't, because obviously the art's going to be changing between the two threads, so they wanted to just sort of separate it as a backup. But you know, there's pros and cons, I guess, to both methods. But. Yeah, I would hate the first half, but I do. It's definitely just the back chunk that I'm into.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate it, but for like to tell Connor if he should squeeze it in on a short week where there's already a lot of books, I felt like it could help him out. I just felt like,
I had to read 2 issues as well.
Yeah, so
should have made him read it just for the laughter.
Yeah, if it wasn't a short week and there wasn't a hockey game on, then yes,
let me
I also would have told him to read Crush and Lobo, but I didn't.
Let me put it this way. If I had read this, I would have not had time to read Nice House on the Lake. And not to spoil my thoughts on that, but that's not going to happen. I clearly would rather read that.
Full disclosure, Connor, less than 40 hours ago, suggested maybe we don't do Nice House on the Lake to save time on the show.
I'm saying I don't need to necessarily talk about it on the show, but I was always going to read it.
Oh, we're going to talk about it. There's talking's going to be happening.
We did have talks last week of not telling you that we weren't reading Crush and Lobo and let you read it, but, you know.
Yeah, that was real high on my priority list.
Yes, I know. So, anyways, what's your rating Green Lantern there, Pete?
I'm happy to give this a 7. I think overall.
Yeah, I'll give it a 6.5. So it's a little bit lower.
I'll give it a 7. But I'm enjoying just this new status quo, see what the world of the Green Lanterns is. It feels different than what we've had for a long time, so I appreciate that.
I appreciate that for sure. And I know it seems like bratty of me to be like, oh, I want it different, but oh, this is too different. But it pulled itself together towards the end there. So.
That's just nerds in a nutshell.
Yes.
I would say fandom in general.
Yeah.
True.
All right. The Swamp Thing issue 4, Ram V and Mike Perkins on art, which
Pete has definitely read now.
I did read, yes. I went quiet. And part of me thought maybe I should overdo my reactions to it on camera just while I'm reading it quietly over here, but I thought, nah, I'm not doing that.
You were too engrossed in the book to remember.
Yes. I'm not Mystery Science Theatering the Swamp Thing issue 4. So they're still in the green at the start of the issue, of course, and Woodrow is with Jennifer, and obviously there's a lot of good art in this book from Perkins, but some of the stuff with Woodrow just slyly looking or smiling at her is just like...
It's so creepy.
He is. He's stranger danger. He's the personification of stranger danger.
There's a reason that there's a point where Jennifer's like, I don't really trust you.
Yeah,
like, yeah. I wonder why.
I know Matt's going to eventually watch this. So I won't get too spoiler here, but this is basically the same type of moment that was on Superman and Lois recently, where Lois said, "No, I'm not going to get into your creepy van on my own."
Yeah,
it's basically that moment.
Yeah, when you said stranger danger, it made me think of the movie Role Models, because that's what one of the kids calls Paul Rudd throughout the whole thing. It's stranger danger. So, yeah.
Which is ridiculous because he looks as young as they do.
Yes, he does. Well, and that's why he's stranger danger, right?
How did they never cast Paul Rudd in a Jump Street movie?
Oh, Joe,
give him time.
There's almost a joke here where you do that Steve Buscemi thing where with the skateboard where he says, "How do you do, fellow kids?" But the joke is that all the kids just go, "Oh, hey, Paul."
Yeah. Well, you could almost it's more. He doesn't look that young to be a kid, but definitely college. He would fit in a little bit better than Channing Tatum in that second movie.
Oh, sure. I mean, obviously, we're exaggerating a bit. He's 50, but he does look surprisingly youthful for 50.
10 years ago, he looked young.
Yeah.
Yeah, but seeing him at the Avengers campus that just opened here at Disneyland, he looks almost the same in those pictures as he did in Clueless, and that movie's almost 30 years old. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, just Clueless. Whatever he's on, get on it, people. Be nice. Yes. Like Paul Rudd.
Clueless, 1 year after Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers, his debut starring role. So Woodrow's with Jennifer. He takes her on a boat. There's a great page here where he's talking about the green, or a great panel, I should say. And she says something feels wrong, and there's a panel where it's just like it's like random vegetation, but there's just enough there to make it look like a face. There's like teeth sort of forming.
There's teeth. There's like almost like eyes.
Yeah.
There's almost like a hand coming in, like kind of doing like that sort of motion up above the face.
Yeah, it's the idea of the something coming out of darkness. And of course, the other cliffhanger from last issue was Alec Holland appearing to talk to Levi, Swamp Thing, and sort of give him some guidance and talks about what the green is, the idea that it's memories, that he says touch the grass, like feel the green, and what is it? And he's like, well, I can't really just describe it in a single word because it'd be like saying describe what a forest is other than just saying it's green.
Yes, but in a significantly more poetic way than that.
Yeah. Well, I'm summarizing.
Yeah. What I like about this being the memory, and again, this goes into Ram V and the elements of storytelling, right? What is a memory if not a story that your brain's telling, right? And so here, the green is all the memories of all the different avatars, and what they went through, and basically each time there's a new avatar, they impact the green as much as the green impacts them, right? It's a symbiotic relationship. And I just love that concept because that is such a different vibe from what we got from, Snyder Swamp Thing, or I've never read any of the Alan Moore stuff, but, it feels so different.
I love this page here as well. I think Perkins' art is spectacular where I'm assuming these are referencing specific moments from previous runs that I'm familiar with.
Yeah, I suspect so.
You can tell, like, by the outer ones, it looks like, okay, this is 80s Alan Moore stuff because it's got that scratchy feeling of that art.
Yeah.
And Abby down there at the bottom, right?
Yeah.
You could tell that this is, there's a lot of respect for the previous runs that came before for the character, and Alan Moore's is in many ways the most prolific one that kind of modernized the character the most, for a whole. And in the same way that we look at Batman Year One as kind of the start of what modern Batman is. Alan Moore's Swamp Thing.
Yeah, because Swamp Thing was around, but he was a monster, and it was Alan Moore that created the mythos. Around him, and he had Constantine showing up, and that's where they're.
I mean, I don't know. Dynamic. I don't know if Woodrow existed before Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, but it was definitely Alan Moore who made him like such an interesting, fascinating character.
I believe Thorne Mann was a Batman villain, so
sure.
I mean, sounds about right.
Why not?
Just on this here, it's clear that Ramby is interested in storytelling, and I mean that as an idea, not just in being good at storytelling. That's kind of his job. But we talked about some of the Justice League Dark stuff. What he was playing with there a long time ago in Justice League Dark when he was doing that stuff with the idea of stories with the different parliaments. and now this, it's you know, and even he likens these memories to being like stories, being, you know, the way that stories change as people tell them, you know, and they get retold and retold, and they shift, and memories do that as well. Like every time you remember something, it's slightly different because your memory is reconstructing.
Yeah, the perception kind of changes. You know, the green is a lot more volatile towards human beings because it's kind of remembering the worst of them and all the bad things that humans have done over our existence on Earth, which, you know, adds up to quite a bit. But he informs Alec, or sorry, he informs Levi. Sorry, Alec informs Eli that there's a rot. What was the exact word he used?
Contagion.
A contagion. That was it.
Which isn't same as the rot. It definitely looks like.
That's why I was looking for the specific word, because the rot is a specific thing.
But because we've seen that before, right? So this contagion is more of it. It's like the green, right? Because these almost look like carnivorous plants. You know, they're very flower-like, but they have teeth and they're scary. So they're similar to the green. And there's a portion of this where they talk about that the green is so powerful, right? That it almost needs man to ground it. But at the same time, you don't want someone grounding it that wants that power. So it has to have this delicate balance. And then, you know, it's that old saying that those who are fit to lead are the ones that don't want it. Right, they're the ones that are, you know. Yeah,
because that comes from a conversation here about Levi's doubt, because he speculates because he says the contagion started a couple of months ago, give or take, and Levi's like, wait, that's when this all started with me. Did I do this? Did I cause this contagion that's happening in the green?
I like that he doesn't know the answer. He's like, I don't know, but it's clearly connected. But you don't know if you're the cause or not.
But then there's that more uplifting idea that, yeah, you don't want this, but the ones who do, and this is actually wonderful dovetailing into the other plot thread in this issue, which is, you know, Woodrow being with Jennifer, is that Woodrow's whole thing is that he wanted access to this power. He sort of forced his way into it. You know, he was not chosen by anything. So his statement here where he says, you're the ones who want this power, the ones who desire it, are the ones that we don't want to wield it. You know, these are the ones that you should be scared of wielding it. So the idea that he makes this, you know, not that he's specifically even talking about Woodrow, but given that Woodrow is one of the most prominent villains that he ever faced, it probably is the first name that comes to mind when he makes a statement like that.
When you think about who's connected to the green, right? It's Swamp Thing, it's Ivy, it's Floronic Man, right? And you look at Swamp Thing and Ivy, and they were both created by accidents, right? Depending on the origin. Versus, like you said, Floronic Man, who chose this. He wants to be a evil plant man, you know? And then so here it's no coincidence that, you know, it's Swamp Thing and Ivy, remember, because she's not poison, just Ivy, that are able to wrangle the oldest form of the Swamp Thing, you know, to calm it down and for him to tap into those memories.
I love the idea that the Woodrows is the original Swamp Thing. It's, you know, the purest form, the first one.
I particularly like the description he has, because he tries to go up and kind of like stop it, and the way he talks about just the force of the wind and the pressure that's been left in its wake as it walks, like sort of catching him up into like a tide of like a gust. I really like that. And then of course the hand comes in and Ivy's there to sort of help, and they work together. She kind of tries to hold its foot in place while he reaches into it, not to like do anything unseemly, just to connect to it and sort of look into the memories, because if this is the oldest swamp being here, then in theory it has the best pool of memories to take from.
It's not even necessarily that it has the best. I think it's more it has the context, because that's the whole thing that Alec is teaching him, is that over time they've still got the memories, but they've lost the context. So things have got warped and they've lost their meaning, and they focus in on the evil elements because of that.
The negativity leaves the biggest imprint.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas going back to this first Avatar, it'll have the context,
which I think
in him.
Just on the idea of the negative things having the impact, I think there's a psychological element to the book where a lot of this is more a metaphor for his own depression and his own self-doubt and all those things, which I think it would be a disservice to the storytelling to kind of gloss over like the representation that a lot of this gives that stuff. The idea of the things in the dark that are there being representative of your own sort of demons sort of like lingering beneath. The idea of the negative things being the stuff that sticks, and you don't focus on the good, you don't focus on the things that should make you feel better and should give you sort of reassurance in the world and yourself and whatever. even here, he sees the memory. We're getting more teases of what his brother was doing when he was visiting his father, and it definitely looks like he had that's a sacrificial looking knife he's got in his hand, and there's some sort of weird shit going on.
Right, and remember the area he's from. It's this wild land out in India, and also don't get the names Levi and Jacob. Right, those are very biblical names, and I'm not versed in the Bible enough to know what the names represent, but there has to be.
Jacob, I think, was that Abraham's son?
Oh, if that's the case, I mean, think of the story of Abraham. I know that one.
And Levi
I think Jacob was the elder child that Abraham was supposed to sacrifice. It could be wrong.
Yeah, and Levi was, of course, the god of genes.
I knew some stupid joke was coming. I didn't know that was going to be it.
I don't know what that was going to be, but I was waiting for something stupid.
Look, you're getting Babel talk from me seriously, okay? It's not happening.
I know, but I thought maybe Pete has something to add, and it was the god of genes. So real quick.
Hey, there's the red, the green, the raw, the denim. Okay, this is just how it works.
And you know who the avatar of the denim is Jay Leno. So and he's very real.
The fundamentals of life, everyone.
So real quick, Connor brought up the Wielgosz, right? Which made me think of I just listened to a podcast talk about the idea of the Green Man, right, in mythology, and that basically you can tie the Green Man back to paganism and the worship of nature, and so just the idea. So I looked up, and you type into Wiki Wielgosz, it brings you to the Wild Man and the Green Man, and this is again Ram B going with the storytelling that at first there was nature, and that's what man
from what
worshipped.
I'm familiar with. Wielgosz is like it's like a European equivalent of like Pan,
right? Or Bigfoot, depending on the story. The Wild Man of the Woods, who if you look at it as a wild wood ape, it's not the same. But if you look at it as this nature spirit that lives out there, almost like who's the dude in Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit that turns into the bear?
Him.
Him. Almost or Radagast, the brown, right? There are these dudes that live out in the forest that are
Jim
that end up becoming one with nature, right? Like they can command the animals, they know all the hiding spots, and it's because they've sacrificed their quote humanity to go live amongst the animals, and that's kind of what
civilization, so to speak.
Yeah, and that and that here with the Green Man and what it means with Swamp Thing, right, is that at first nature was worshipped, and then other things started coming as humanity developed, and then basically it's no longer a thing that's worshipped; it's just something that is. And if mankind, as we're getting in with the Prescott when we get to the end of the book, right, it's just something to be mined. And it's not anything that's worshipped or to be treated with respect. And that's what the Green is pushing back against now, right? And when that gets to Levi and his issues about it, like Pete was talking about, all the darkness, all the depression, and all of this, the Green this time chose him for a reason, right? Yeah. Is it because his negative headspace dealing with the death of his dad, and then his brother pulling some weird occult stuff that is poisoning the Green? Right. It reached out to this man who clearly needs it. Right.
What might be really interesting is if it essentially chose him to stop his brother. Right.
Mm-hmm.
That might be it might make him feel worse in that he wasn't chosen for himself. It wasn't anything he did.
Well,
it was
actually, I think
his connection to someone else.
I think something Matt just said there's interesting because it just said the Green's acting out because of what mankind is doing to it, right. And it's chosen in Levi perhaps because Levi needs the Green. I do think there's something interesting about the Green needing Levi as much as Levi needs the Green. The idea that it's a mutual beneficial thing where Levi needs the purpose, he needs the strength and the support of the Green, and the power that will come with that. But the Green need him, partly because of who he's connected to, and partly because of his place in the world, but ultimately because he is deep down going to make the right choices. He is the the good, and you know, to get back to biblical stuff, the idea that two brothers, one is inherently good and one is inherently not, is a very biblical thing.
That goes to Cain and Abel, right?
So, but anyway, to get back to sort of here, we cut back to Jennifer and Woodrow. One of my favorite panels in the whole book is when Woodrow starts acting creepy and she's hiding from him. You don't realize what she's screaming at until the next page, and it's because she's seen Swamp Thing for the first time properly. But the all-black panel of just her eyes and teeth screaming is particularly great. And Woodrow, you know, recognizes Swamp Thing, of course, and Swamp Thing's like, I know you. And obviously, this is the memory of the Green. This is the memory that he's been tapping into that is telling him who this guy is. That's why he's recognizing her.
He doesn't know immediately names or exactly what he's like, but I know we're not friends.
A familiarity, there's something there.
It's again those strong emotions, especially the negative ones here, because I'm sure Alec Holland had lots of negative emotions attached with Woodrow.
Oh, for sure.
They're powerful enough to come through immediately.
And Woodrow's got that creepy smile as he says, "You're going to become a monster eventually, just like me. Like this is your inevitability."
Well, and again, it's sure he's a monster because of how he is, but it's not his actions, So it's Woodrow's actions that he seems to be trapped in the Green, right? Like I can't remember the last time we saw him in Justice League Dark, but I know it didn't end up well for him because he ended up doing the Parliament of Flowers thing, and and then Alec basically sacrificed himself to save Wonder Woman and Zatanna.
Yeah, it was a while ago. I think did we see Floronic Man in the Harley? No, we didn't. Never mind. No. They just thought it was Floronic Man, but we didn't actually see him, did we?
No, it was another version of Ivy, right?
Yes.
But yeah, and he looks so sinister there when he calls him that you're a monster just like me.
Oh,
so it's like, well,
proper creepy.
So is he going to use this contagion to try to unbalance things?
I mean, it's not a million miles to sort of suspect that Woodrow has something to do with it, even possibly, or at the very least, he's going to take advantage of it now that it does exist. Right. But I'm sure that's stuff that the book's going to get into. They wake up back in the lab. If you'd forgotten where they were when they actually went into the Green, she was giving him a scan, and
a CAT scan.
They go home in silence. They're dealing with this, and she talks about how she saw a monster in her dream, and you just see his looking. And I think one of the things I love about Swamp Thing, when it's written in a way that I love about it, I love the idea of this layer of this monstrous side of the world, whether it's another realm or whatever. And here, this idea of getting in and out of the Green, and it's this kind of monstrous land. Like that panel of him just sort of like putting his hand in his head, and he's just in the shadows and the darkness, and this look of despair. I think it's almost Lovecraftian in the idea of this cosmic horror that you can't comprehend. That's so big and like otherworldly.
I also like the shift here that it's doing with the typical, Alec and Abby stuff was, oh, he's a monster,
right.
Where and it's so,
it's
physical,
also very
so you can see it, but there's the man underneath. This here, it's kind of the other way around, where she's talking about, oh, there was this horrible monster. It was like the swamp had come alive, and that's obviously that's him that she's talking about, but she doesn't realize it, and it's the monster beneath instead. It's a nice reversal.
Yeah.
Right, which that's what I was into. It's very Hulk, and this book actually reminds me a lot of Immortal Hulk, right? And and it's curious that if it is Al Ewing that he's working with on Venom, like what is that story going to be, and why do I have to read it now?
It's so funny that DC over the years have tried to do their take on Hulk, and likewise, Man Thing is definitely Marvel's take on Swamp Thing.
Right.
But it's so funny that realistically, Swamp Thing and Hulk are the comparables. They're the ones that actually should be compared.
They're both men of science that were turned into monsters by their science.
But they both have their own... I mean, obviously, Immortal Hulk in this has a lot of comparisons, but I wouldn't say that Hulk traditionally has as much in common with Swamp Thing, but they definitely have their own spin on things, usually.
Well, it's the fact that these are both psychological books right now, talking about what makes somebody a monster, right?
It's the horror of the trauma and the monster underneath.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
And and I did double check it. It is Al Ewing with him on that.
Yeah.
Venom.
So now I don't care about Venom, right? I tried to do the newer one. That's
you couldn't get into all the null stuff.
It was fine, but I didn't ever go back. I read that first trade. However, you put Ram V and Al Ewing in telling a book about what makes a monster, and I'm there. Like
yeah.
So
it's Brian Hitch on art as well, so it's probably gonna look pretty damn good.
Well, to get back to the plot of this book here, we have scientists from the evil company, the Prescott Company, like basically in the MRI like surgery room, well, not surgery, you know what I mean, the scanner.
Yeah, CAT scan.
And they're basically, you've got hazmat suits on, they're scanning for DNA and samples, and they're looking for anything like, and because we knew they were paying attention to them before, we had those teases, but this is straight up, no, they're looking for something, and they seem to like get the results of the CAT scan, which show like, you know, some plant-esque features coming out of his brain. So
tendrils,
which is, if you remember last issue, that was the visuals of what kicked all this off. Like when he was having the scan, it kind of burst out of that image into the green.
Yeah, so the end of the issue is him calling Amanda Waller Bella Reeve. So we knew this was coming. I suspect it's going to read fine if you don't read Swamp Thing, or if you don't read Suicide Squad.
This isn't the Suicide Squad that we, you know, that even showed up like Man Bat, or that's in Teen Titans Academy. You know, like there's Peacemaker, but I don't recognize any of the other ones here. Do you?
Not really. I do have a question though. Why does Amanda Waller look so weird on this page?
I think this is Mike Perkins struggling to run regular people, because this has been his weakness ever since we've seen his stuff.
It's never looked like this though. She looks like it looks like she was drawn much taller, and then they had to like squish her into the page.
Yeah. So it used to happen when you would put, you know, a widescreen movie on a full screen.
It's like a forced perspective trick, isn't it?
Yeah.
But what's weird is
she's the wall, but she should not be taking up 60% of the page.
But what's weird though is that none of the other characters on the page behind her have this effect. It's just her, which is why it looks kind of weird. I don't know.
Yeah.
The whole thing's a bit odd. So they are amazing in this issue. It's just this last page that's goddamn weird. So I mean, as long as the next Swamp Thing reads well without Suicide Squad, I have no problem with this being a step in the story. But
did either of you have any plans to read Suicide Squad? Because I immediately looked and went, no.
We stopped reading Teen Titans Academy when they handed Suicide Squad. Like, nope.
I mean, don't get me wrong. If they called it part 1 of 2 and like the next issue of Swamp Thing was part 2, I'd make a point of reading it. But as of right now, it doesn't seem
very telling that this says to be continued and not to be continued in Suicide Squad.
Yeah, it doesn't make you read it.
Yeah, no. I definitely feel like this is just him borrowing the concept.
Imagine reading that Suicide Squad book right now, and there's an issue that ties into a Teen Titans book 1 month, and then the following month it's tied into a Suicide or a Swamp Thing issue. Like, that's 2 months in a row of that book where it's just kind of like a weird support book to other things.
And it's only like 4 issues in or something. Like
it's
that,
just
5.
Like, it just makes that book feel even less like attractive for so many reasons. So that's just kind of weird. Swamp Thing was great though. Mythology stuff, more character stuff. I'm also digging the evil company. You know, it's always been a factor, a sort of staple of the Swamp Thing story since the 80s. Is the idea of the, you know, it was always the I always forget the name of the company from the Moore run, but you know, like that's always been a staple of the character pretty much since then. So I'm digging it.
If you haven't, go read Flintstones. Mark Russell did a digital first. That was basically Swamp Thing versus capitalism, and it's fantastic. It's basically what Pete's describing. This one's way more sinister than the Mark Russell one, which of course is typical Mark Russell satire.
This is way. I mean, I didn't read the Mark Russell one, but this the darkness of this book, the sort of the horror that we can't quite comprehend, the shadows in the world that exists beyond the shadows. That's kind of the Swamp Thing that I really love. So this book's speaking to me in many levels. Matt, what are you giving Swamp Thing?
I'm in this 9.5.
Connor.
I mean, I thought I was being generous with, well, not generous. I thought I was being fair by giving it a 9, and that was still pretty high. But
I'm going with a 9. I may give it an 8.5, but that weird Amanda Waller on that last page is getting half a point.
That's the thing that's keeping it from that's the thing that's keeping it from a 10 for me.
So I'll also go with a 9 out of 10. So and because I expected something in that range is why I said I'm not talking about Justice League. I'm going to read something instead.
Look, you made the right choice.
I did. Choices were made. Choices were made, and they were correct. All right. these next couple we'll go through a little bit quicker. Just keep things moving here. But Man Bat issue 5, Dave Wielgosz and Sumit Kumar. Basically wrapping up exactly as you'd expect, and also as we expected, it kind of did the transition to the Man Bat that's in Justice League Dark. So this is definitely a pre-rebirth Man Bat sort of transition into that rebirth Man Bat, and that's fine. It's the funny thing about it is that I appreciate what this book did for the character, and some of the fight with Batman when he's all venomized and Batman's acting all crazy because he's got the Scarecrow stuff in him as well. Like, all that stuff's fine. Man Bat, saving everyone by going through with the new sonic cannon that reverses everyone's fear. That's all fine. I got to the end of this and went, I kind of feel like the first issue was really interesting, but the rest of it's been fun enough, readable, but I don't know, it feels like it was designed just to explain how Man Bat changed into the Man Bat that exists in Justice League Dark. I don't know if it ever sort of became more than that at the end.
I liked it just because we got the idea of Kirk and the monster having to live in balance, because when he always would blame all of his bad stuff on the monster. So to me, this became a story about accountability, and that Kirk has to be accountable, and part of that is he's got to take control of the Bat within, because the Bat was there even before he
that's his anger. That's his, I think. So I've said a couple of times that this coming out in the same week as Batman, that's got a much cooler version of Scarecrow's hurt it. I actually think this issue especially hurts being up in the same week as Swamp Thing, because Swamp Thing's doing the Man and the Monster together, and it's far more artistic and far more.
It's so unfair when this book was scheduled to start coming out like a year ago.
I know.
Yeah.
Like this book would have been
October,
over before. What's that?
It was even earlier than that.
Wasn't it supposed to wrap up in October?
Oh, wrap up? It may have been October, yeah.
It was meant to start, I think, the month of the shutdown.
Yeah, April or May. It was around then, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I feel bad for it, because this should have finished before Swamp Thing started, before Batman started doing any of this stuff.
Well, and you got to remember, I'm not even trying to say the writer's last name. He's the editor for Batman. So he's very familiar with all of this stuff. So just the whole idea of, I do like the idea of the bridge, almost like this is what made Scarecrow change his tactics, right? Because he wasn't using the toxin. He was trying to use the subliminals, right? So now this leads to him working with Simon Saint and doing whatever. So I do like that you can see the bridge with the Scarecrow there, albeit, I mean, Tynion's creepy Scarecrow is great.
There's a bridge with the design as well, in that he's got the hat here, but he's also got the burlap sack. So it's kind of in between what we had before and where we are now. Feels like a transition redesign. Again, if this had come out where it should have done, it probably would have felt a lot more natural.
Yeah, because obviously the last chunk of pages are Wonder Woman showing up to recruit him, and that's, and it's him holding the lasso saying he's ready to help people or whatever. So it's it's a nice enough ending. I think the first issue of this felt really promising, and then the rest of it's been fine and enjoyable enough to be kept reading it, but nothing standout-y shit. I don't think
it's never been bad, but it's definitely never lived up to that first issue.
Yeah.
No, but I do like. I have a soft spot for monsters though, so I enjoyed this just as a fun read. It's not. I don't think it would ever top my list for any story, but it was a fun go. I loved the Harley stuff. What was that, issue 2 or 3?
Yeah, I think that was 3. I think
3.
I like that.
Yeah, I'll be shocked if this makes my top 5 for the week. But we'll see.
We make mine because I think I only read 5 books, but so by default, and also one of those was Justice League.
Oh dear. All right, man. What are you giving Man Bat issue 5?
I'm gonna give this a 7.
Connor?
Yeah, I'll probably just give it a straight 7 as well.
Yeah, that's 7. It's a 7. It's a 7 out of 10 book.
I will say I left this and Swamp Thing for last because they're my 2 monster books.
Yes.
So
I think the difference, because I gave Batman a 7 as well.
Yeah.
I think that the difference here between them, I'm much more positive on Batman 7 than I am on this. Not that I'm negative on this, but Batman, it's the middle chapter of a story. That can be a 7. It's fine.
Right.
Whereas this is the ending of my story. I want more than a 7.
And I think Batman, you know, also has better art, and it also feels like it's building to a lot of big exciting things. Whereas this is, you know, this is just
building something that we read 3 years ago.
Yeah. You know,
like quite literally.
And that, and the Man Bat that we met in Dark was, you know, a little bit more endearing than this one. You know, he still has a little ways to go before he's wearing the coat with the glasses and half bat form. So, you know.
So cool. The next Batman, Second Son, issue 3 of 4. That is. So this is chapters 7, 8, and 9. John Ridley writing Tony Akins on art. The basic focus of this batch of 3 issues is the deposition. It's Jace going in and telling the story of what happened when he was younger. We find out that he hit a guy with his car, but we get a slice of his lifestyle. He was this, you know, spoiled rich kid who had fast cars, had parties. He never learned anyone's names. He was very frivolous in that sense. You know, a girl kind of like pulls him up for it because when he tries to chat her up, he doesn't even ask her name. Like, he just kind of like, hey, you must know me. I'm Tim Fox. I'm the best. And that's kind of his whole thing. And then, of course, you know, he hits this guy with his car, and immediately Lucius and his mother, but Lucius especially, starts like, oh, how do we solve this in the media? Oh, this guy had a troubled past. Leak that. Oh, this guy, you know, was drunk. Leak that. You know, he starts leaking all these things, and eventually Tim's like all this doesn't change the fact that I was on my phone talking to a girl when I hit him with the car. Like, I'm the one at fault here. Like, that's basically what he says to his dad. And, you know, there's a sort of poignant moment where Lucius says, like, no, if what do you think would happen if you were the one who was hit? You know, you're a young black man. What do you think anyone would be fighting for you? But when he sort of continues making his points, he says, you know, like, you know, people like us have to be able to fight back. And wait, what do you mean people like us? Do you mean rich people? Because the point he's clearly making is like, yeah, we are fortunate enough that we have money and lawyers that we can fight this way, but most people don't. You know, over 99% of them don't, typically speaking. So it's sort of hitting at this sort of thing where, you know, Lucius is kind of in this weird place because, well, he is black, he is also completely filthy rich, and that puts him into a slightly different camp at the same time, and kind of the opposing like mentality of those two worlds sort of clashing, and how Jace has kind of rebelled against his family in a lot of ways because of how they've leaned into their money, and you know, we even see his mother kind of try to pull her strings with getting documents redacted and stuff like that in this issue. But that was the bulk of the issue. The first, you know, third built up to it. The second issue was him in the meeting, and the third was basically the little extra stuff that he hadn't finished talking about yet, where he still felt like all the worst stuff came after with how his dad handled it and all that. Did anyone else actually read this? Because everyone's been very quiet.
No, I pulled a Connor, and I didn't catch up last time. So yeah. I still have to catch up. I should be caught up by. Now that I don't have Man Bat, next time 4 comes out, I should catch up. Because I did enjoy the first round. I just, you know, vacation and then, you know, books.
This was the same issue, the same week as that Green Lantern issue. And I said on that episode, I plan on catching up. And then I worked even more overtime in the next 2 weeks. And I've just not caught up.
Filthy lies, then, is what you're saying. Filthy lies.
I planned, just didn't happen.
So, yeah, it's a solid chapter. It's obviously the biggest prominent thing. There was a scene at the start of the very first chapter in this book that I wasn't necessarily sure what he was doing yet. He seems to be like recruiting someone or something, like Jace that is, or making sure someone's who he thinks it is. If this was something that follows on from a previous issue, I'd forgotten whatever it was. But there's a couple more scenes with the detectives and the idea that the one cop who let Batwing go when he was supposed to like arrest him, and how Montoya kind of knows something like that went down. She doesn't necessarily know exactly what happened, but goes to the partner, you're the one who we saw in Future State, and says, hey, like, soon this is going to be like a law we have to enforce completely, so you're going to have to like make a choice about like sticking up for your partner if they do something like that kind of thing. So it's kind of just setting up that she's been put in a rough place. If nothing else, it feels like all of this is really prominent backstory for when we get the actual book that's kicking off in August/September. So, yeah, it's still in continuity. It still feels like part of the world. So it doesn't just feel like a weird offshoot. I will say it's done a pretty good job of making both Lucius and his wife a little unlikable, which is weird because you actually think of Lucius Fox being an unlikable character, but
no. But think about in Grifter, like the fact that he socializes with that dude. You know, like that's who he thought to be his bodyguard.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah. But that notably's coming at the same time. It's almost like editorial has decided that Lucius is going to be a little unlikable for a while.
Yeah.
And that's just the status quo right now.
Yeah. I mean, he's one of the few people that can tell Bruce no. So, you know, you got to do something.
So,
being a little antagonistic.
Yeah, interesting. They're not bad. I'll give it a 7.5, and I feel like I'm docking it at least half a point just for the digital format, which I still don't love. And like I feel like I'm having to swipe twice as much as I should be just because they've got them all split into half pages. But that's basically it. It's the solid. Yeah, I think the first chapter was a little bit more wonky, but once it got to the second two, when it was really Jace getting into the backstory and sort of giving us everything that he actually did and how he reacted to it, it was kind of like everyone but him didn't want to have him accept the responsibility, but he did. He actually felt the guilt. He felt that he'd done something wrong, and everyone else was trying to cover it up and tell him that, oh no, you don't want to take responsibility. You're just in shock. You know, we'll fix this. We'll fix this.
Right.
So
it's the two different justice systems.
Yeah. So no, super interesting. It makes us root for him a bit more because he is this morally more sound. Even if he was a bit of a shithead beforehand, when he goes through something like this, he ultimately is wanting to stick to his guns, and that, you know, that means something. So, and the conflict that's caused with the family. So there you go. That's next Batman Second Son issue 3. Batman Catwoman issue 5. Tom King and Clayman. So we're back to another big book, and we have we have Selina in the past. This is the one that just sort of had to admit to Batman that she knew stuff about the Joker. She's just drinking herself silly. She's drunk. She's fighting the bartender.
I love the fight with the bartender because even though she's 3 sheets to the wind, she follows through on what she says she's gonna do. And I was getting Marion Ravenwood vibes from her in this. So
okay.
But yeah, that was a good moment. That's Tom King fully getting Selina.
Yeah. So that's plot thread 1. Plot thread 2, which is the middle part, is her seemingly forming a new bond with Phantasm. And then future thread is old woman Selina at the Wayne Manor, basically being confronted by old Harley, who at first is like, she basically comes blow to blow immediately and wants to like beat the piss out of Selina because she killed the Joker. You're thinking, wait, is Harley regressed because she seems to be like mad that she killed the Joker? But then you get the big full page splash like halfway through the fight where you killed the Joker. You turn the page, it's like, before I got to.
Yeah.
So it's like
almost like she went back on a deal.
Yeah.
Like, you're supposed to leave him for me, but yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, it's good stuff. And it does well with the coloring here, the color palettes. There's a great page early on where it establishes those 3 vertical panels of each timeline.
Yeah.
In order of the continuity, and you know, the first one's green, the second one's tinted blue, and the third one's more of a sort of red and black, or maybe even purple and black. But it's good. Good stuff.
It was this issue that made me realize that this is basically a Christmas Carol for Selina. We're getting ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future, and all dealing with her guilt over who she used to be. And I was like, damn it, King. You did it again.
Yeah, and Harley puts on this creepy mask to like fight Selina, and it's kind of fun having like old woman Selina like in like a fighting stance. It's just like a different type of, because you don't usually see people who are meant to be elderly go into these kind of poses in a comic book, so it just kind of sticks out as being a little unique. But yeah, so this is in that page where she yells out before I got to, like, it's very demented because she's got this like creepy white mask on. It's like the Purge or something like that. And there's like sort of the out of focus blood splatter as Selina's like hitting the back of her head. Yeah,
it's a Harlequin mask, you know.
Oh, so sure, I mean,
she's actually living up to the name.
I suppose, you know? But notably, it's a lot creepier than her makeup.
Yeah.
Also,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, drunk Selena having a conversation with a cat and actually treating each meow as a response. That's something I do sober. Just
big, yeah, this is a big Pete energy.
Yeah,
there.
I'm okay with this.
But in the fight scene right before that, where they're fighting and Harley's talking about, you know, the way he'd actually cry tears, and said, but Selena, what she's seen, and then he'd go effing quiet, and that was the only time he's quiet. So the fact that even Harley knew back then that something was up with Selena and him, you know, like there was something that wasn't adding up. So yeah, it was a real fun issue. The page after she's done talking to the cat, and you get this painted image. It almost looks like the Phantasm mask. It was just Selena. This is Sal Niceman. He's not a very good man. That page, that is spooky.
Oh, it's just like wonderful. It's sort of that dripping kind of art style.
Yeah.
And then of course this guy's chained up, and Phantasm's brought Selena here to help effectively, you know, question and torture him. And
terrible tattoos.
Yeah, you know,
terrible tattoos.
Get the information, and this guy tells this story about how. So she explains that this guy was a Joker like fanatic when he was in like college or whatever. Maybe even like a sort of pro punchline in many ways, and was like super into the Joker. Eventually got to meet him, and the Joker kind of like took him in because he was, you know, so enamored with him. And he basically had this job of like recruiting more people like him, but they weren't using them as new henchmen. They were bringing them in so they could test the Joker gas on them. So it's a very sinister story about what he does. And Selena actually stands there and watches as Phantasm kills this guy, you know? It's this idea that even at this point in the present day part of the story where she's with Bruce, she's still at least being party to darker things, a world that Bruce would not be a part of. So, you know, it's good stuff. I love the transition from that as well, because it's this, you know, super stark, everything's bathed in like the red and the blood, and then you've just got these cold knives like hitting a bit of metal to transition back to the future stuff with the old fight. So no, it's good. Now I don't necessarily think of Batman's dinosaur like its flesh decaying, but I do think there's a bit of symbolism in it having like an actual T-Rex skeleton now instead of the the dinosaur that he usually has in the cave.
Well, no, isn't she? No, that's not the cave. She's gonna break into a museum.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Joe, she's got slammered. So yeah.
Joe, it's because the two old versions are at the top of the page, and for some in my head there, I thought this was them like falling into the skeleton.
Yeah.
No, you're right. Yeah, this is drunk Selena going to the museum to try and steal something.
And Batman finds her and takes her home.
Yeah, this is the first time we see her. See Batman, sorry, because she's looking up at the broken skylight where she came in.
Yep.
And then Batman kind of comes in all in shadow, and it carries her back to the bat, and a gorgeous full page spread.
Effing Batman. Just love it. Hey, something that I've said on numerous occasions, and I can relate with Selena, drunk or not. But yeah, and then, you know, we get them, and Phantasm, what's her name?
I can't remember.
Beaumont.
Yeah, Beaumont, there you go. Andrea Beaumont, yeah.
There you go. She has some weird choppy robot in her house, right? Like, it's very sinister. So, and then Helena shows up, sees tied up old Harley.
In the future, yeah, and she's like, okay.
Yeah, in the future.
Let's explain this right now, Mother, shall we? Just on the Andrea stuff, though, is that I like that she's pointing out that Bruce hasn't changed Selena as much as he tends to change everyone else that he gets involved with.
Right.
And she's surprised that Selena's still kind of separate and thinks differently. So there seems to be a bit of an unlikely friendship kind of forming, or at least an understanding between Selena and Andrea forming. So I'm curious to see where that goes now. But
I also realized in this timeline, she's got a version of the animated series suit on. Right, it's that gray. Kind of,
yeah. It's a bit more tactical looking than the animated version, but yeah, it's got the same color scheme.
Yeah, but I just realized that now looking at this, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, still with goggles though. worth mentioning.
Yeah.
So no. No, so this is kind of a weird book where it's really, really solid and it's getting more interesting as it goes. Yeah. But it's still definitely out of the 3 Tom King books that are going right now. It's easily the one that's the least special.
Yeah, because it's the most of his Trident territory, right? Like to me, Rorschach is his push into something new. Strange Adventures a little less so, but what he's doing with the whole hero's journey type thing. And then this is a Batman Catwoman story that's essentially a Christmas Carol. So, yeah.
All right, what are you giving Batman Catwoman?
I'm going to give this an 8. This is a real solid book.
Yeah, I'm sure I agree. I think 8 out of 10 is good for me too. So there you go. The Nice House on the Lake, issue 1, James Tynion the 4th, with Alvaro Martinez on the art. Did someone just go yuck?
I said woof.
All right. I was like, who's reacting negatively? What the hell? No. So here's our little horror pair. 2 horror books that both started this week for whatever reason. But this is the Tynion the 4th one, and obviously the one because of the creative team, the more desired, the more anticipated. So this book is not really what I thought it was going to be.
I don't think it was what anybody thought it was going to be.
There's a moment towards the end of this book where you go, oh shit, that's what this book is.
Yeah, because you know, I think you see the cover, you read the fairly vague description, and you think, oh, okay, so all these friends are invited out to this house, and then creepy shit's going to start happening, and that's what you sort of go in thinking.
I'm thinking Camp Crystal Lake, you know, something, they're trapped in this big house, you know.
I think maybe there's some quiet horror going on in the lake.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking slashery horror, not what we got.
And to be fair, the very first page kind of sets you up to sort of like throw your ideas out, because you see this sort of page where it looks like someone who's in some sort of post-apocalypse with a spear, and you're like, wait, what the hell is this? This does not look like your creepy lake in a house or house in a lake horror story. It's just your main character here, the artist.
The artist.
Yeah. Who then explains kind of how she met this mysterious man. She started talking to this guy in a bar who was very silent and observant, and she would talk to him, and he kind of opened up the conversation in a very weird way where he just sort of asked, how do you think the world's going to end? And this became kind of like a thread that started their relationship, where they would talk about this and they'd sort of use it as an excuse to watch movies together, almost as if it was research, he said. And basically this went on for a while, but then one day he just kind of disappeared. Like, he just stopped communicating and he was gone. And then out of nowhere, you know, a couple of years later, she gets this invitation from him to go to this house in the lake. And it, you know, the full page is like the email page. I will say I hate that it's based on a Mac, because to hell with Macs. But other than that,
I like the there's a couple of references to Tynion's other projects. There's one on here,
Tynion Studios.
Yeah, which is that's like his company.
Yeah, you can see the first little bit of the inbox on the left hand side for a bunch of other emails. So,
but anyway, I do love Aunt Linda sending a funny video that she's not ever going to click on.
Yes.
Right. So yeah, I do like how they do play with the different, because there'll be another moment here where we essentially go to Twitter to get a live update. And I do like that. I like the mixed media.
Very specifically, TweetDeck, actually. That 2-page layout, which is Twitter, but it's very specifically TweetDeck.
Yeah, gotcha. I've never used TweetDeck, so I just thought it was them doing I thought it was Bueno and Tynion just doing this world's version.
Nah, because TweetDeck is like the columns where you've got it sorted into different categories, and it gives you
it's like that. And as much as this is set on a Mac, and me and Peter hate that, it's very clearly, man. You know, it's got like the 3 colors. You know, for the attachment pop up, and it's like, okay,
yes,
it makes it feel super realistic.
First thing that the Mac does wrong is it puts its close, minimize, and maximize on the wrong side. So that's the first thing that's the problem.
Yeah, it's terrible.
You guys say that, but as someone that only uses Macs, it's on the wrong side when I go to work and have to use my work computer.
You filthy casual. I mean, it's changed since back in it, but I remember having to use a Mac in school and being like, "Where's my right click? Where the hell's the right click? Why is there no right mouse button? How did I get that menu to come up?"
when I was using them in uni, I had to enable right clicks because there is an option usually.
I say anything.
Yes.
So, anyways.
So yeah, so she goes to the house, right? So we get this weird tease. It's set kind of in like present day world because she's wearing a mask. And
she's wearing a mask, and they do a temp check before she goes in with the temp guns.
So there is a little bit of present day context. So we get a little blurb for her, even though we've been kind of already get a sense of who she is from the backstory. Which clearly she's telling this story from the future. She's telling this story in the past tense from much later. Yes. But
this is day one.
So yeah, so this is day one. This is her name is Ryan. She's 26. She is referred to as the artist, and they all have their own little symbol. It's going to take me ages to remember it, because if there's any slight nitpick about this book, is that they've got to a point where I'm like, oh my god, stop introducing new characters. There's only so many I could take.
Yeah. However, I do love that each of them has a descriptor, and that's how I'm going to remember them, because I'm not going to remember their names.
Exactly.
Like, I forgot her name is Ryan. She is the artist.
Yeah. Well, I think
I do appreciate that.
I think the issues going forward, there's probably going to be like an issue that maybe focuses on just a couple of them, so we're going to remember them better as we go because they get more focus. But
and this is when we were being introduced to them with their little blurbs, and each of them were clearly defined. I was getting Cabin in the Wood vibes. That these are all tropey.
One of the first things I noticed about these little blurbs, that's the word, which obviously come from this, was it William, the character who's put them all here? Walter, there you go. Is that it keeps saying at the end of these, where he met them, but then also where and when they were chosen. And it's like, okay, so whatever he's doing with these people, he's been planning this for years and years. Like this is
some
something.
of them were chosen like 19 years ago or something like. The second one is 18 years ago they were chosen.
Yeah, and then there's actually
different clusters, like his high school cluster versus the New York cluster. There are different points of his life. Yeah, but there's a cluster like later in the book where it felt like a lot of them were chosen around the same time in Wisconsin, and it was kind of a mix of different characters. I'll be curious to look at them more specifically when we get there. But the second character we meet is the writer, who is trans. That's the writer, Nora, who's 34, and you'll notice that all the ones that he went to high school with are all 34, which makes sense because they're all the same year at high school. But like one of them has a spouse who's 32, so they're a couple of years younger. Obviously, the artist is a bit younger because that's someone he met in a bar years later. But you get this wide variety, but a lot. That's the thing, is that the artist knows the writer, but you get the impression that the artist doesn't actually know a lot of the others. A lot of the others come from his circle that he made in either high school or college for the most part. Yeah. So a lot of them know each other. But
there's a point where they're like, "Oh, you're the artist. We were expecting someone else."
And you get that here where it says first on the artist. First encountered 5 years ago at Beer Garden 33 in Greenpoint as a friend of the comedian's then girlfriend. And then you go to so it's like an intricate web of they all know each other through someone else.
Yeah.
Right?
Do you know what this really reminds us, especially with the symbols? It really reminds me of what Gillen McKelvey did in Wicked and Divine, where you had all the gods and they had all their own symbols, and it was like, they're all.
I'm falling asleep. I'm already falling asleep.
Don't give me a reason to read that book. I've stayed away, and if it's anything similar,
obviously, I'll say more why when we get to the ending reveal. But this, as it went on, was making me feel less horror movie set in a cabin by the lake, and more very high concept Twilight Zone episode is where it really started to go.
Each of these people are a piece of something. And what experiment is going on? Because why are you dropping a reporter in with an acupuncturist?
What I will say is I really like how, you said that the writer it mentioned, but the artist it mentioned, comedian's then girlfriend. A couple of pages later, we meet the comedian. And it's like, okay, so here's this guy,
and
32.
They met at the consultant's birthday.
Yeah, so
it chains on.
There's a web, and then we meet the accountant, who's Molly, and she's best friends with a scientist who's introduced right beside her, who we're told actually dated the writer in high school, obviously before the transition. And there's like a little awkward moment afterwards where they notice each other and say, "Oh, hey," as if, there's history here, and there's a little bit of awkwardness because of that. So you get a little bit of that, and then we meet the reporter, Sam, that's Win, right? That's how you pronounce that. I always forget the weird spelling. And the acupuncturist, and these two seem to be in a relationship. These two guys.
And the reporter is friends with the painter. And then they know the acupuncturist through the reporter. Yeah,
it's such a web. And then the consultant, and there's a couple who have read text because the consultant has it because they're with the DNC, and then I think it was the best friend one, the scientist. She works at NASA, so they have links to some sort of important organization which are noted.
This is when reading those, I was like, I got to this point and I went,
They're being profiled for something here.
This has sci-fi vibes more than horror vibes at this point. Like,
kind of,
I'm
yeah.
Like, and I started thinking of like The Martian. I was like, is this an experiment? And they're, how we redo society, and that's what the horror is that humans suck at the end of the day. And then, oh no, it gets horrific. So that was not a letdown. But at this point in the book, I'm trying to juggle all the characters, and I give Tynion credit for introducing him. It does feel like a movie or a TV show where you get a little bit of time with them and then you move to the next one.
Yeah, you get just enough where you go, okay, I recognize them when they'll pop back up, but I won't really remember them outside of the barest minimum. But I have enough faith in Tynion that over time I will know all of these.
Yes, I very much hope, at least for a while, like the following issues will always not have the full blurb, but will have their title next to the doctor, the
pianist.
You want it like Legion style.
Kind of, yeah. Just for a little bit, just till we get to know them, I think. But we get the doctor who does know the artist because she's very friendly with her, and the pianist as well. They're both 34. I think it was around this page. I'm like, oh my god, how many characters are going to introduce stuff? As long as somebody I can retain.
So it said the painter. So unless we're missing someone, there's no. Wait, did the artist replace the painter?
Well, he did mention in the email, not like some people decided not to come, so it could be entirely.
So these are not. So these are not hard and fast categories that he filled.
Yeah.
Right.
So
he gave everyone a designation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But only 12 out of
showed up.
Yeah,
15.
Was it 15? Yeah, there was a few that didn't show up, and that's when Walter, who doesn't have a blurb, he just has the name and just basic text.
I love that it's so big in comparison to everything. It's just the name. It's just it's mysterious, right?
Yeah, he's very ominous, and the funny thing is, obviously to the artist, he is a bit more mysterious because of how she met him, but to everyone else there, pretty much, he's mostly a fellow student, either in high school or college, so while he might have always seemed a bit weird, they kind of know him in a way that doesn't, like, they wouldn't suspect him of something fishy.
Most of these, or a lot of them have known him for like, 10, 15, nearly 20 years.
Yeah.
But you have to think, too, that he's no one's best friend, right? He's that person that kind of floats around, and you're like, oh, you know Walter? Yeah, I know him. We're good, right? Like, that's
we all know those guys, right?
Yeah. I have a friend that I consider, I wouldn't say close, but a good friend that's like that I definitely saw vibes of with Walter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they're all chilling. They're all impressed. I mean, that was one of the threads at the start of the book when they first walk in the house is how the writer says, I almost feel like I'm sullying this place even looking at it. It's so perfect and like expensive looking and whatever. But they're all basically just chilling, drinking, whatever, being in the pool that night. And no one can get a phone signal. The only one who can actually get any signal on their phone is the artist. And she happens to check her phone here towards the end of the book, and we get the TweetDeck style page. And it's basically just a spattering of tweets about chaos in the world, New York's on fire, people's skin is peeling off.
Anderson Cooper burst into flame live on air.
That was a neat reference, yes.
Like, holy crap, man.
This is another one of those references to Tynion's other stuff. Cole Turner, which is at the bottom right.
Okay.
That is a character, I think that's the lead character of his Department of Truth series.
Oh.
Which I have heard described as like a kind of modern style take in a post-truth world that we're in now on X-Files. So
well, then that lines up with what he says is they effing knew this was coming. They've been preparing it for years. Well, so if it's the Department of Truth, dude, then
what I love is that there's someone who calls this fake, right? And obviously we've had people in the past year and a half call the pandemic fake and blah blah blah, right? That's happened. But what I love about this, because this is literally like cities are burning, like have just burst into flames. It's literally that meme of like the cartoon dog in the fire. This is fine. This is literally what this guy is.
I love how that tweet. Also, the this is fake. It's got a blue tick, which tells me, okay, this is someone who is got a reputation for spreading shit like that. Which a nice touch. But that's following the tweet that's I just watched Anderson Cooper burn to death on live TV, and this is all fake.
Yeah. I like the touch of. I was gonna say I like the touch of the BBC tweet saying from like an alternate perspective where it appears New York City's like being destroyed, but no response yet from Downing Street. It was just like a really specific phrasing that made it feel different. It's
because that's what the BBC would tweet, right? It's very very natural. Of course they would tweet. What's the British perspective on this?
So the guy that says it's all fake, right? It says this is just some kind of promotion for a dumb movie. I guarantee in like 10 minutes we're gonna see Superman show up and fix this. Now, is this taking place in the DCU, or is that guy just throwing out that as a reference? Like, I
think he's throwing it out as a reference. Like we would see, they're all putting this on all the TV channels. They've paid for all that airtime.
I think there's too many questions about this world functioning if the Justice League exists to help stop all this.
That's my question. So I think that guy going, Superman's going to show up and save everything.
I think all of the pandemic references early on tell me this takes place in our world right now.
Okay, gotcha. I just wanted clarity on that part,
Yeah.
But yeah, so it goes from bad to worse because then the emergency broadcast kicks in, right?
Yeah, they turn on the TV and they're basically told all this. And they all immediately start trying to like call loved ones. They want to make plans to get back home. They don't want to stay here for a week while this is going on. And then Walter, who has a very more ominous look in his face where he just looks all right, and the artist points out, you picked us, like you.
We haven't even talked about the fact the art here, all the color is drained.
Oh yeah, it changes. Yeah, it gives that impression, that harsh blue light of a TV screen almost as they're all watching this.
It looks almost like watercolor shaded instead now. Like that panel of him saying, "I'm sorry, everyone, you can't leave."
Yeah.
It's gorgeous stuff.
Yeah, and. So he basically explains, that's it. There's no world to go back to anymore. You were picked for here, and you'll never want for anything. You'll have entertainment. You'll have food. You'll have this gorgeous place to live. But you can never go anywhere. And obviously, I suspect that following issues are going to get into, why can't they just leave? Or what is the boundaries exactly? Is there like a force field around this place? There's all these questions just flood my brain as to how does this work exactly. But I'm sure we'll get to that.
The first time we see the artist, she is missing an eye. So... things are gonna get
in the future. Yeah, in the future. Yeah. So super interesting stuff. But he says that he's their friend, but he does say, this was unavoidable, and he refers to we, like in terms of like planning this and like accomplishing this. He says we, so he is with some group of some kind, and it's not that long. It's the end of this 2-page layout where all this like exposition and them all being in shock as they're hearing this is happening. Where the writer picks up, I think it's the fire poker or something, and takes a swing at him, and his face just kind of splits apart like it's not a hologram. It's kind of like a flesh hologram where it just kind of splits apart. Does that make sense?
It like stretches as well, though.
Yeah.
It's like
he's outside of reality, if you ask me. That is...
I would describe it like... I would say it as like obviously he's there, but I would describe it as... It's like what you imagine if you put something through a hologram and you imagine it breaking apart because you've broke the thing, right? Except there's also like blood in the inside of his skull and teeth, and like he's like flesh on display when it happens. So it's kind of like a weird mix where he's physically there, but his body just kind of split apart and like changed and distorted because of the impact. It was weird.
It's not like it doesn't affect him. It's not like it goes straight through him. It does, like, seemingly cut straight through him.
But he no-sells
it. Melts his head off, and then it kind of just morphs back together.
Yeah. But then he breaks the hand, I think, of the writer.
Melts it.
melts
Melts
like,
it. Yeah. Like, and I don't even know if he touches her. It might just be like almost like a
snap.
Yeah, because you see him he kind of lifts his hand.
Yeah, and that's just it. Yeah.
And then part of the hand just kind of goes missing, right? And it's gone.
Well, and look at him too. It clearly has some type of effect because he comes out of, out of order. It's almost like when you hear about Lovecraft stuff, like you can't see their true image. So it's like our brain can't comprehend what he really looks like.
It's like
a ghosting effect on a TV.
Yeah.
There's the after image as well. It's still there at the same time.
That's not a bad way of putting it. I would describe it kind of like either From Beyond or The Thing, where you've got the two heads kind of thing that are sort of half merged together, but it's more of like a video distorted sort of version of that. But it was really creepy though, because we get to the bottom of that page and he's like, "I'll be back every now and then to toast to the whole world, but I hope you find it and to enjoy yourselves." And the last thing he says, "I love you all," comes across super creepy, especially since that last little thin panel is just his mouth.
And it's a weird bit though as well, though, like because as creepy as it is, I think it's kind of genuine because he chose these people like
he saved them.
He saved them, right? These were his friends, and it's like, no, you deserve this place.
This house is effectively an arc. It's a
it's as much as our characters are obviously going to view it as a prison. I don't think he intended it as a prison. I think he intended it as
it is the ultimate survival. If you have to survive something, a house that looks like this, that has more than enough space, more than enough food, right?
That begs some questions as well. Like he says, you'll be able to live here for the rest of your lives, and you'll always have supply of food. It's like, okay, where's that supply coming from? And I suspect him and whoever he works with seemingly have the power to make things just combust, right? So do they have the power to just like make food appear or like bring in food from somewhere?
I would say it's not, because it's less combust and melting. While I understand the descriptor, maybe it's not the best word, because it's more of he's shifting matter in the same way that he shifts his face.
Sure.
That's kind of way he does to a hand. So I wonder if he can just like manipulate matter into, well, I can create food out of
maybe
whatever
air, essentially.
So here's my thing too. He's obviously with a group. How do we know this is the only house like this?
That's true.
Because each of them have a different signifier, and they're almost a piece that would make society function. Again.
It wouldn't surprise me at all if there's a twist or a reveal like halfway through the book, which is there's a second house somewhere. Or
I think that's the issue 12 kind of reveal, right? That's you tell this story, but that's your season 2 story,
right? And so it's very lost, right? When you hear about the tail section,
like some way they'll find a way to communicate with another house that exists,
right? But also, I was getting like when he says, "I love you all," and you'll never have to want for anything. It reminded me of the Garden of Eden, weirdly, to whereas like I'm going to give you everything you need. You just have to stay here and do what I tell you. And judging from the first panels, it doesn't go that simple, right? It almost like this house breaks down into whatever.
In this parallel, obviously he is God, and I mean the Old Testament God. He is a vengeful God, right?
Right.
That's
makes one mad.
But that's the idea. When they reject Eden, so to speak, it's like, well, f you then, go and
beat it
off and manage on your own.
Right. And another thing, and again, I'm not up on religions, but I do know lore of stuff that because of the flood, God had said it's not going to be by water, it'll be by fire. And look how this world was destroyed, and it, left an arc of people here.
May not be accidental. Yeah, you might. Yes.
And there's a lot of plot threads as well, which like I guarantee some of issue 2 is going to be these characters starting to doubt if it's real. Like, okay, so he did this weird supernatural thing, but do we really believe the entire world's gone? Do we believe that our cities aren't there and that our families are all dead?
And how do we know it's not an alien experiment to see how we would react to something like this? And like that, it's like a reality show for them.
That could still be a reveal. Like, come on, Matt.
I have no idea why that did that. That's very weird. That's not even a song on my playlist. So
sure, it's not that. Sure, it's not.
100% it's not. I don't listen to Eminem. All right.
I don't know
why that played. I don't know if my watch went off. I don't know if the Whatever's happening in this book is real.
But,
yeah.
Anyway,
we're getting too close, guys.
So yeah, like it wouldn't surprise. Like, I don't think it's out of the question that this could turn out to be an experiment and it's not real.
Right.
That's not out of the question.
The only thing kind of leaning me against that is the prologue section.
Sure. But in the prologue section though, she's still at the house because she's on the stairs where that symbol is. We see that out in the front of the house. So she's not actually in a different part of the world. She's still there.
She's still there, and if the experiment went so out of control, right now she's saying how it went, and now we're taking it back. You know what I mean? Although, who knows? All I know is this: I was getting Big Cabin in the Wood vibes, and then this happened, and I was like, oh, this is not at all what I thought it would be. But I'm 100% here for it. There's
multiple episodes of the Twilight Zone that kind of dabble and stuff like this. There's one where there's a really great episode where they hear in the news that there's going to be nuclear bombs dropping, and one family's built a shelter, and it becomes this fight over the shelter, right? So that's sort of digging into these themes a little bit. There's an episode where someone tries to fake the end of the world and basically brings 3 people he hates into his like fancy bunker, and he has it all rigged to sort of show signs that there's stuff going on up above. And the whole idea, I mean, it's all like a manipulation thing because he wants them to apologize for how he thinks they've wronged him. But it's all very psychological, and it's actually a really good episode because it does something different with how it goes and where it ends with his character. But
Twilight Zone have a good episode? No.
Yeah. Hey, they have a lot of bad episodes too. Like
they do.
There's up and downs, but it's definitely like when it got to like, oh, the concept to this is that the rest of the world is dead and that they're on their own in this fancy house by this mysterious person who's brought them here, who may be a god, who may be part of an alien race, who may be a part of something something that we've not even suggested yet. I mean, this is like straight up. This is good television mystery style stuff, and I love that the last page just leaves it with them in silent shock, crying, screaming, in awe. And because this is a big fancy lake house with just nothing but big giant windows for the view, we just sort of back out the house, and we actually end the last panel. It's basically the same shot that's on the front cover of the house. It's the same sort of angle of it just sitting there on the lake.
Reflected in the lake.
Yeah. So, needless to say, we'll be discussing issue 2 next month.
Yes, 100%.
Look forward to that. So, no, very good. I am all for DC dabbling in some of this more non-superhero stuff with their bigger creators.
I think it's because this is straight up creator owned. I think he said that. This is basic. I mean, it's got Black Label on the cover. This is basically just a Vertigo book, right?
Yeah.
So this would have been, 5 years ago, this would have just been published under Vertigo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but in a weird way, it kind of got us to cover some of these books that maybe we might not have covered if they were still published under Vertigo. So, if nothing else, it was a win for this show.
Are you suggesting maybe their decision to fold Vertigo and kind of just publish them as Black Label may have worked?
Not in a broad spectrum. I think just for us, we had this distinction. If it was Vertigo, it wasn't DC, so therefore we didn't talk about it on the show.
Are you more inclined to read something though, if it's like, oh, it's just a DC book with everything else, as opposed to a Vertigo book?
No, I wouldn't say
I'm
I
sure
am.
Some people are though.
Some people may be, but
I mean, they're...
if same thing. If Vertigo still existed, if I saw a horror book with this title and it said James Tynion the Fourth, I'd try it because it's James Tynion the Fourth, not because
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and like someone like Tim who loved Vertigo would try it because it was Vertigo before it was Tynion.
Yeah, if anything, Tim might take more convincing because it's not called Vertigo anymore.
Right, exactly. Are you talking about the Batman guy? No, thank you.
Just take your physical copy and go, Tim, it's basically a Vertigo book, and just whack him on the head with it until he reads it.
I mean, I say that. He eventually reads everything in trade. He goes out and spends like a fortune at the comic book store every week. So,
he should probably just get, DC Universe Unlimited or
he likes the physical.
I know, but he reads a lot of digital stuff as well, right?
He does. He dabbles in both.
Like, I know the TKO stuff. When you buy it, I think you get a digital copy. So I think that's why he's also really big on. They're very creator friendly.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think the cheapest option is just digital, but then you can get just physical, or you can get physical plus digital. There's like tiers of purchase.
Maniacs do that.
The hypocrisy coming from Matt.
Uh,
A TKO are the ones who also.
You get the trade or the singles.
Yeah, you can
at the same time.
Yeah, you can get a box of singles instead of, which it's kind of funny, but it's almost the first time I've seen like a comic publisher acknowledge that some people just like the feel of a single in their hands versus a trade, and therefore they'd rather six
some
singles.
People like having a book on their shelf.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So cool.
I would say I like just to my final point on that. I like singles more than like 6-issue trade paperbacks, but an Ace Deluxe hardcover I like more than a single.
No, I agree with that. A deluxe or an absolute.
With sewn binding.
Yeah. Those are so much nicer, but single issue over a regular paperback for sure.
Yes. All right, ratings. Matt, what you give it?
This is a 9.
Connor,
I'm going in with a 10.
Ooh, right out the gate.
Yeah, I am going to go with the 9 as well. I think I like it a lot. I am deeply intrigued.
Bueno's art is beautiful. We didn't talk about it enough, but
and Bella's colors.
I think we'll talk about more of the art in issue 2. We're too flabbergasted with just what the premise is at this point.
Honestly, that was it. When I read this book, I was just like, God damn, what a comic! Like that is just like one hell of just the craft of it all is just one hell of a single issue.
Yes. So I'm looking forward to seeing how we settle into what the premise is now that we know what it is, and seeing like how it plays with that as we go.
I also noticed just before we finish on the cover, the symbols are all there under the title, and the first one is the symbol for the artist, and that's highlighted. That's yellow as opposed to all the other ones in white. I wonder if like that'll symbolize who we're following in each issue.
It would surprise me if
there's 12, and there is 12.
Or they fade out as they
die.
They fade out as they die.
That's possible. It wouldn't surprise me if they even just like they're in that order because that's the order they're going to focus them on.
Yeah.
So we'll
like there's 12 of them. There's 12 issues. It feels easy.
Yeah, there's reasons to think.
So if that's the case, the acupuncturist makes it almost to the end. Would never bet.
We're using the meta to predict things now.
All
right. So The Conjuring, the Lover issue 1 is the final new book of the week. And I'll say I didn't dislike this. I thought it was fine. Like there's some nice creepy art moments.
Yeah, I'll this is my last book. Now I gotta go because I gotta eat dinner and then watch the hockey. But this felt like half a book in the same way that I complained about Bendis. So it's not just a Bendis thing.
Yeah, no, I agree. It felt like there wasn't as much of a story here, but it's kind of funny because it does end before 20 pages because there's then like a backup. And I actually kind of like the concept of the backup because the backup is basically it's going to be just a little short story by a writer, in this case Scott Snyder, about one of the objects that are in the room, the room from The Conjuring. Yeah,
which I love that as a concept because then I love that in Annabelle Comes Home, that was the thing. That was the whole, each of these objects is haunted in a different way, and that's how we're going to see all the different ghosts and whatnot. So I like that. I just here, if this was a short that was like on YouTube or whatever, I think it's a little bit more affecting because it's using like visual scares versus stuff that's more comic.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically a character who's going to college, who doesn't really feel like she's right for it. Her mother's trying to like encourage her. Is also trying to encourage her to like see boys and stuff. I actually there was one line that kind of indicated that she was actually gay, and her mom just doesn't know that.
About her best friend and how much she misses her.
Yeah, I was like, wait, this is sounding more than friendship at this point.
She was staring at that picture of her best friend, like the meme of Wolverine, staring at whatever you put in there, right? Like the longing was there. I might have translated the Latin, so I know what the hell they're talking about.
Of course you did. Of course Matt went and Googled the Latin.
Of course. Pete, I've watched enough horror movies that if you know what they're saying in Latin, you're gonna save yourself. Right? Like, just know the Latin. Right? But it basically, from that first page, all you need to know, it's very simple Latin, and I'm not even sure. When I put it in the Latin translator, a lot of stuff didn't come up, so I'm pretty sure this is just, writers. Yeah, not even Pig Latin, because Pig Latin has a flow, right?
Yeah.
Pig Latin play.
So
anyway,
so there's a couple of creepy moments, and I think if this was like a visual short, it would probably because the art is nice enough. I mean, she's sitting in the library alone, and then the area behind the bookcase gets dark, and then you see the two red eyes in the hand. Like, it's good, effective little moments that I think I did enjoy on their own. But when I got to the end of the story, which does end fairly quickly, which is just this sort of tease of the darkness, the eyes coming out, the eyes and the hands coming out of the darkness above her when she's sleeping. Like,
her name.
it feels like a very early part of a horror movie before any of the real meat kind of gets to it, which is why it's maybe a little unfulfilling as a comic book issue, because it just didn't feel like it goes far enough. But it's perfectly fine. I think it's probably going to make for a decent enough trade once the whole story's there. But I got to the end and went, you know what? There's a lot more books out in this week now, and this is an easy one to drop, I think, going forward.
I'm with you. Did you do the decoder ring in between the stories?
No, I did not.
Oh, man. Basically, it translates to the child, the lover, the man of God. So whatever that means, I'm sure that
I would just like to say, Matt, you know how you like solving all these puzzles and stuff in the comic?
Yeah.
Go and read that Batman Black and White issue 5, that story with Gillen McKelvey. It's a Riddler story, and it invites the reader to play along.
Connor and his Gillen McKelvey agenda.
That week, but I ran out of time.
It's an agenda, is what it is.
It is. Yeah. I have an agenda. I'm not hiding it.
Real quick, how'd you like the Scott Snyder story?
I thought it was all right. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a nice Tales from the Crypt episode.
But yeah, that's basically what it was. It was obviously shorter, more to the point. It was a story about this kid who was dared to put the coins over the corpse's eyes for the ferryman, but then for the rest of his life, like everyone he fell
to steal the coin.
To steal the coin, sorry,
sold it so he could buy a toy, and then this curse has followed him through tragedy through life.
Yes.
And then when he gets to the place where he's supposed to be able to track down the coin so he can end this curse and be happy, it's a smelting factory. Basically, the coin was melted down and he's never going to find it.
Mm-hmm.
And he turns to the taxi driver, and it turns out that the taxi driver is the ferryman.
Yeah.
From Myth, and as long as he pays, so. For
a book that Matt wasn't enthusiastic about whenever he sort of hinted at it, it's kind of funny that he both translated Latin and spent time to do a decoder puzzle in the middle of it.
Indiana Jones is my favorite character. How am I not going to do this? Right? Come on.
I'm just saying, it's a lot of effort for a book you weren't in love with. That's all I'm saying.
Also, I had some time at lunch, so you know. Also, it was an easy cryptic. It was an A1, Z26. As long as you didn't know the flow, you're fine. However, my favorite thing in this issue was the fake ad in the back, which I'll probably share tomorrow, just so people have enough time. But it's basically one of those, Beachbody ads for what was his name, Frank Atlas, to someone insults you so you get stronger and fight back. That's not what this dude did. This dude gets insulted, decides to go to Baphomet, worships, and is able to, get the courage to stab this man to death. So the message of this was, don't get swole, get Satan. That's all. This one-page thing filled me with joy. And, I might have to keep up on this just to see if they throw more stuff in there.
I have to admit,
just flick through it at your shop, Matt.
Yeah,
that's what I was gonna do, but I'm ethical.
Yeah, I have to admit, I didn't read the fake ad at the back. I was done.
It's fun. So
I will say this: all of DC's books this week had a lot more like digital pages at the back, just advertising future books and stuff. So
a lot of them are the Pride stuff, which is cool.
Yeah, Pride Checkmate had some ads. Like House in the Lake has some ads. Like there was a lot.
Sounded like you were calling out Pride Month. Were you like Pride Checkmate? I was like, Pete, where are you going? I remember.
Checkmate. Yes, the Checkmate book was also advertised, is what I was saying.
So, alrighty, guys.
No, I have no ill will towards Pride. Comics the Multiverse happily supports Pride, and
any chance Matt has time to do his best of stuff before he runs off.
Yeah.
I suppose he can.
I do my best moment, right? It's from Swamp Thing. It's where him and Ivy are tying the Green Man, the Green Hulk thing, and you see all the memories.
The 2-page one, yeah.
Yeah. Art though, that one was tough because I want to go Mike Perkins, but Nice House on the Lake was also really, really good. But I'll just keep it clean. I'll give it to Perkins for Swamp Thing, with the exception of Waller. Cover.
Waller, yeah.
I didn't think about this one. Let's go.
Let's play. I know for a fact Matt was looking at covers before we started.
Yeah, but I couldn't. None of them popped out. I'll go Mad Bat just because he looks like he looks like a roided out freak on there. That's a fun cover.
Can you tell Matt's in a rush?
Yes.
Yeah.
Top 5.
Top 5. Number 1, Swamp Thing. Number 2, Nice House on the Lake. Number 3, Batman. Number 4, let's see. Number 4, Batman Catwoman. And number 5, Man-Bat. Sure.
Okay.
Yep. And remember, guys, don't get swole. Get Satan. Go Knights, go. And I'm going to click out. You can edit this out.
Patreon book then. So I originally planned on 2 because I still had 2 from last month. So I got 1 less from last month that I'll do next week. So I'll do Animal Man next week, then I'll be straight into like the Joker for this month, like either the same week or after that. But basically, there was even more books this week. I mean, earlier on I literally forgot to read Swamp Thing because there was so many goddamn books. And I actually forgot about Nick's Batman as well until very last minute because I was going to read 2 Patreon books and then went, oh wait, shit, Nick's Batman was this week. So I had to just pick one.
It says a lot that you forgot. Like, there's that many books that you forgot Swamp Thing, which obviously you haven't given us your top 5 yet, but there's not an insignificant chance of it taking the number 1 spot.
It's
1
gonna,
or 2.
It's going to be on the top 5. I mean, there's no question about that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But anyway, everyone on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. Our patrons can make myself or Connor read a book at one of the higher tiers. And I am here today with kind of a mistake, I admit, but it's not a huge mistake. Something that can be rectified quickly enough. Because I'm doing American Vampire, and I was technically supposed to jump to the miniseries, but I forgot about this. I was supposed to jump to Survival of the Fittest. I kind of forgot about that and just read issue 19. But this arc that this starts is only 3 issues, so I'll do the miniseries after this arc. So it's
You're a terrible person.
It's a slight edit to the order. But it's just because
I don't edit my books.
Well, here's the thing. I don't actually have the trades. I have all the singles. So I had sorry?
So you just forgot where it was.
Yeah. I forgot that I was supposed to move over to the. It's not going to affect anything. Like, it's fine.
Is it though?
It's fine. If Tyler's upset with me, he can voice his upsetness.
Oh, he will.
He can voice his upsetness, and I will accept the wrath.
And then you will apologize deeply and offer to watch a musical for him. Tyler, you hold him to that.
No. That's not happening. So this is the arc that actually goes into the backstory of Skinner and Jim Book and how they knew each other as kids. How Skinner moved in with his family after his family were burned during the Civil War in their little farmhouse, and just how Skinner was always a bit more vicious, reckless, dangerous. The way tackles a snake early on. When Book's like, no, I should just go home. I'd better go home and not get into trouble and stuff like that. It really sets up this interesting relationship between them, which is sets up with them as kids for the first half of it. And it's stuff like him holding a knife to his throat, grabbing a rattlesnake with his bare hands and then throwing it over at Book. Just stuff like that. But then we jump ahead to when they're obviously older, and they're in the southern New Mexico territory in 1871, and they're both serving in the army. And there's some wonderful callbacks here where at the start of the kids stuff, it started with Book kind of wandering around as a kid, and Skinner sort of snuck up and grabbed him from behind with a knife. And this kind of starts the same way, where he sneaks up behind him and grabs him. And it's like the same old, but they're basically they're scouting. They're watching for scouts that are looking for their little troop of the Native Americans. So it's like, okay, there's a bunch of Native Americans who are scouting our team. We're going to have to go back and warn everyone, kind of thing. But there's a lot of this issue is in the dialogue. A lot of this issue is in the little suggestions that Skinner has that are a little psychotic or unhealthy or vicious or things of that nature. Because when they end up going back, because they do go guns blazing for the couple that they see that are close, but when they get back to the captain or whatever the rank is, and they tell him what they've seen, and they've managed to capture one Native American to like give them some information. He sort of acts like he can't speak English. They demand to know things, and Skinner ends up just violently cutting off the guy's ear, and then cuts off the second ear after he gives him a bit of information. But the information he suspects is a lie, because he says there's only 35 men in his group, and like, no, they wouldn't send 7 scouts for 35 men. That's far the ratio there is far too extreme. So it's like, no, there's probably a lot more. This is probably a more dangerous mission. We're probably in fairly dangerous territory. We have to do something. And this is where Skinner just starts suggesting things like, oh, we should just sneak up to where the camp is and just burn them all alive. We should just set fire. And the captain, being a bit more honourable, is like, there could be women and children in their camp. We're not going to do that. So he's a bit more level-headed and likable. And it becomes this thing, which I think is the most important thing about the issue, really, is that eventually Book sort of stays behind and talks to the captain and says, look, I know he like acts kind of over the top and he's whatever, but he might have a point. That there might be a lot more than we were expecting. This might be dangerous, and we should maybe listen to him a little bit, even if we don't take the advice of just burning everyone alive. And the captain's like, look, I've met guys like him before. They put him in the military because they think it'll, straighten them out and get rid of their already rough qualities, but it never works. And we can't rely on him. We just can't. And Book says there's no one that he'd rather have watching his back than Skinner Sweet. Obviously, words that he is going to come to regret many times over as the years go on. But it paints this really weird, oddball friendship and relationship, this brotherhood between them. Because essentially they became brothers because his family adopted him. And this thing where he's willing to stick his neck out for him, even though he is so extreme and he is saying all these horrible things. And even right after this scene, he goes to talk to Skinner again, and Skinner's like, no, I'm dead serious. We should just go and kill him. He's sort of chuckling that he's got blood on his arms from cutting the guy's ears off. He's like, this is war paint. But, Book's determined to sort of look out for his, problematic brother of trying to keep him in line and being there for him, because regardless of everything else, he will be there for him, to a point, of course. So, but we get a tease that there are a lot more Native Americans with guns up in the ridges and the cliffs waiting for them, setting up this up. And the cliffhanger, though, is there was a tease early on from the Native American about this spirit that lives in the caves, because the arc in this is called The Beast in the Cave, and Skinner amusingly is the one who's being cynical and saying, you don't believe in monsters, James, come on, like there's no such thing as monsters. And we see a Native American go into the cave and ask to talk to Mimita, is the name of this sort of she spirit creature, whatever she is. When we actually get the final page, though, and she's like naked and comes lunging at the Native American asking for assistance, she has fangs. She's a vampire. So this is obviously not how Skinner becomes a vampire, because we know how he becomes a vampire. It was the European vampires that turned him and created this new version. But this is actually an encounter that they have with something vampiric before that takes place, which was the origin story back from the first arc, the backup with the Stephen King story. So that's the thing. So we're delving into history here. We're going further back rather than going forward. So we get to the 50s in the next arc, I believe, but this is a 3-issue arc doing some stuff with their relationship pre the vampire, at least, well, the main vampire stuff. Obviously there's a vampire here, but it's more mythical. They don't really necessarily have a word, like, would they even know what a vampire is at this point in this time period if someone said vampire to them? Or is just there's some beast in the cave that goes by this name as a sort of like way the story would spread.
When's this set?
18... Oh, and I go back to it. It was like 1870 something.
I would assume there are legends of vampires at that point with that name, or something along those lines.
Maybe. How well known were vampires, though? Because I feel like Dracula probably elevated how much people knew what a vampire was.
Pretty much every culture has had a vampire myth, though, like long before that. So reasonably well known.
I'll take your word for it. Maybe it's because we have the modern vampire, so we don't hear about the old myths as much. But I couldn't name you any old vampire myths.
Yeah, that's because we kind of replaced them all with the modern vampire, but most cultures had a version of the blood sucking vampire.
Well, yeah, it's a very change of pace, this issue, because obviously everything before was all the action on the island with the squad and try to get out of the place, and Skinner was there, and we have all the violence and the explosions. This was a lot more slower paced. It was a lot more like back to character basics, and I think that's a solid move to keep the book feeling fresh. Obviously, your taste might mean you like one more than the other. I'm all for the slower build and the horror, and I like that it's doing the character building. But I wouldn't necessarily say that I prefer this to the previous arc yet, but I'll see how I feel about it as we get to the next couple of issues. But like I say, I'll do Survival of the Fittest after this arc, which still works out nicely because that's before we move ahead in time, because that's back to World War II. So it's not like I'm going forward into the 50s and then going back to World War II.
That'd be awkward.
So this is at least still fairly neat. But yeah, probably gives it a 7. It's a little bit slower, like I said. But I appreciate the kind of more nuanced dynamic between the two characters that it's kind of presenting. So we'll see where that goes. But yeah, that's American Vampire issue 19. So I say I owe one more for last month, so I'll be doing Animal Man next week. I was planning on doing both, but there was like 10 books or something like that. So
yeah, I'll be doing some of mine. Obviously, I did one this week with Justice League. You could expect at least one more next week.
Makes sense. So that takes us out to the part of the show where we pick our favorite stuff of the week, favorite panel / moment, favorite cover, favorite art, and top 5 books. Matt already, of course, quickly gave us his before he went. So starting off with panel / moment, what do you have?
It's from Nice House on the Lake, unsurprisingly. I'm going with the in the final section. It's the side profile of Walter just saying, "I'm sorry, everyone." That panel, I just think is phenomenal. I'm not going to say the rest of what that panel is for spoilers.
Yeah, I'm a little conflicted because I think there's a few things I could pick from either that or Swamp Thing. Maybe even one or two things I could take from elsewhere.
It says a lot that in a week where you have the meta thing in Justice League Dark that I loved, that's not even in consideration for my moment.
I think I'm going to go with Swamp Thing. I think I'm going to go with just them in the cab on the way home and that conversation and the way he sort of dips his head down. Although I was also tempted to pick her scream in the darkness.
Is it the insert panel specifically where he puts his head in his hand, or is it just that whole kind of bottom, like, quarter of the page?
I'd say the insert panel and the panel it's inside.
Okay.
I'd say that beat.
Sure.
So that's my moment. Cover of the week. I do like the main Justice League cover. It's just a neat idea of all the hands coming in. I'll also give a shout out to the Swamp Thing variant, which is a very, very pretty cover. It's almost Apocalypse Now, the way the Swamp Thing is coming out of the water.
It's pretty slim pickings this week for covers, given the amount of books there are.
Yeah. I'm going to pick the main cover for Nice House in the Lake, though, with the house in the background and the head in the lake, with all the skeletons in the foreground.
Yeah, I like all the covers you mentioned. The only other one I'd throw out there is the Batman variant, the Middleton one. I think that's quite nice. But I'm also going with Nice House on the Lake, regular cover. I think it's really evocative.
There you go. All right, what's your top 5?
Nice House on the Lake.
Wait, did we do art? Do art first.
We didn't do art. It's Nice House on the Lake.
There you go. That was the right one anyway. Yeah, I'll probably pick that too. Well, if it wasn't for that last page, I might have picked Swamp Thing. But
it's very nice. Don't get me wrong.
Nice House on the Lake.
In another week, Swamp Thing probably would have won, but not this time.
All right, top 5.
So, Nice House on the Lake, then Swamp Thing. What do we have after that? Can I say specifically the Justice League Dark backup?
No.
And then Batman?
No.
All right, fine. Well, I guess then it's Batman and then Justice League, which drags down that backup. But I like the backup more than Batman.
Okay. Was that not 3 and 4? Or was that 4 and 5?
I only read 4. Oh no, Man-Bat. Shit, I forgot about Man-Bat. I mean, yeah, I guess Man-Bat's above Justice League, but I kind of forgot about it.
Well, there you go then. Okay, nice. My number 1, I think I'm going to just give it to Swamp Thing overall for number 1. I'll give number 2 to Nice House on the Lake. And then we're into some interesting territory. I'll probably Batman at number 3. Number 4, I'll give to Batman Catwoman. And then number 5, probably to Green Lantern, I think. So
imagine if you hadn't read Swamp Thing.
I was so busy trying to remember all the other new things and all the the one of the main books just slipped my mind.
It's not even like it was a book like this was obviously this was high on all our lists, top for you and Matt, and it's not even like this was a particular standout issue. It's like this is the bar for this book. This is what we were expecting. Actually,
do you know what I think it is? I think it's because the covers of Green Lantern and Swamp Thing, at a glance at thumbnail size, look kind of similar because they've got a kind of similar color scheme. I think that's what did it. I think I just kept glossing over it because I've read that already. And it wasn't until I read the list out that I went, oh, I haven't read Swamp Thing.
You're the worst.
So there you go. Good week. So what's coming next week, one might ask. So let's look ahead. So coming next week from DC Comics, we have Detective Comics 1037. And this is the first month it's double shipping, so we're going to be getting through that story arc a little bit quicker now. As is Wonder Woman 773 also. So it makes sense they're both coming out next because they have to now.
They were week 3 books before.
4.
What?
Detective Comics was just week 4, sure. Detective in Action were both week 4. This is week 1.
Okay.
So next week is week 2.
Yeah.
So Detective 1037, Wonder Woman 773, The Joker issue 4 is out next week, which means I will be reading issue 3 for Patreon. So one behind, but you can still get a talk on it and some thoughts. Rorschach issue 9 is out next week, as is Batman the Detective issue 3. We got Batman Urban Legends issue 4, Future State Gotham issue 2, which me and Matt both said we couldn't understand for life was why that wasn't with color, because it felt like it was missing all the neon that was a part of the appeal.
I get where you're coming from, but I still thought it was a gorgeous book anyway.
We both docked at points because we thought it was an odd choice to not have that book in color. But
I get it, but I think I'm assuming it's a stylistic thing they want, like an editorial choice rather than that artist being like, no, black and white.
Oh, sure. Justice League: The Last Ride issue 2 is that next week. Did you read issue 1 of this?
I did. It's all right. I mean, it's just I'm hoping for more as it goes on because it's Starsky. But I mean, the first issue was fine.
Yeah. And this one's worrying. DC Pride issue 1, the 100-page special anthology book.
Just like to clarify, worrying because a lot of pages to read next week, not because there's a Pride issue.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
I know you meant that, but I wanted to make sure that was clear because you went, oh, this one's worrying. DC Pride. No,
this one's worrying because there's a lot of books, and unlike maybe, I don't know, random 100-page horror special, which I don't feel bad about skipping, I feel compelled to read this one because it's for a good cause.
Yeah.
Much like the Asian Celebration issue from last month. So, yes, I'm talking about page count here and how much reading I'm going to have to do. Also out next week is Challenge of the Super Sons issue 3, American Vampire 1976 issue 9, and the Batman Scooby-Doo Mysteries issue 3. So,
Jesus, I just counted up how much that actually is in terms of page count and how many issues that is. If you read the backups in Detective Comics and Wonder Woman, theoretically, and Rorschach is oversized slightly, I believe, it's 14 or 15 issues worth before you add on a Patreon book.
Well, that's fair. I'm not reading Wonder Woman though, so I get to skip that. And hell, maybe I won't read Last Ride. Maybe I'll just be like, oh, you know what, things are too stuffed. Maybe
it's probably one of the first things to get cut from that list.
It probably is. I will say this though, the quality's been a lot more consistent, and we've been praising that DC's in a really good place right now. And I think, you know, when we're cutting books that are decent enough because there's too many books and a lot of the other ones are just much better, that's a very good position to be in, ultimately.
It's a better problem than, you know, when like, oh, there's this old shit and I've got like maybe 2 books that I like.
Which, you know, hasn't happened too often since we started the show, but there's been a couple of odd weeks here or there where it just, you know, the dominoes align in a weird way that it's not particularly pleasant.
It's never been as bad as like the DCU days.
Oh, jeez, yeah. I mean, I basically just wasn't reading anything at that point. So yeah, interesting week incoming. All right, so there you go. That is what is coming. I will take this time to thank our Patreon producers for the month. So thank you to you all. Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Short, Board Now, Al Treisman, Christopher Moy, David Brown, and Stanley. Not Stanley, Stanley. So that is our Patreon producers. You can support us at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month. The producers are, of course, all 20 and up. The people who make us read books are 30 and up, but you can support us for $1 per month. And perhaps more of interest to most people is the $5 tier and up, which is early access to the show by a day. You get it a day, or you get it whenever it's ready the night before the actual release day. So if nothing else, it's there for you in the morning when you get up. At least I think Americans, they get it Saturday evening. People in the UK and further east, it's there for them in the morning. Although I guess if you're like in Australia, then you're even.
Let's not think about that.
Yeah, it's earlier than you would have gotten.
When you get to Australia, New Zealand, these funny countries that are just off to the side, we don't think about those.
It's earlier than you would have gotten it, but I don't have the idea of like you're getting it on like Monday morning instead of like middle of Monday night or something like that. I don't know what the works out as.
Well, if any of our patrons are from Australia or New Zealand, they can let us know when they get it.
Sure, I think there's at least one.
Well, if you are listening to this,
I can't remember.
Please.
I don't know if there are comic books. I don't know if they listen to Comics from the Multiverse, if they're a patron for other reasons, but there's definitely at least one patron who pays in Australian dollars. So there's at least one. So
well, there we go.
So good day to you, mate. Yes, I didn't bother trying doing the accent.
I'm really glad you didn't.
I thought
really patronizing.
Yeah, I thought I'd subvert it and just sort of like do like a weird like take on it.
Yeah.
As opposed to actually try to do the accent. Yeah, I'm not going to do it. So yes, thank you to all our beloved patrons at all tiers. You're all vast supporters. And you can also support us, of course, for completely free by simply hitting the like button, subscribing, commenting, all those things on YouTube. And likewise, rating and reviewing the podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcast from. All those things do help. As does, of course, sharing us out on social media. You can get us on Twitter at DC Comics Podcast, and keep in touch with us there. But otherwise, that is us. That is episode 256 of the show. So thank you once again for watching and listening. We always appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics, and remember, never get lost in the Speed Force.